And we're live. Julie, before we came out, I was trying to wrap my head around how we basically start this conversation, because as I've explained before with other guests, we usually pick a topic to open on, and then we just basically run from there. And with you, the obvious one was you're my first female guest, and you're also my first foreigner, so you're the first person that isn't Irish. But I didn't want to interview you and have you, represent women or represent...
Or America.
Or America, yeah. So I ended up asking you, what interest did you have or what have you studied, and what's your degree in?
I have a degree in psychology, an undergraduate degree. So.
Okay. And I asked then, and I'll ask again now, what psychology is kind of split into different camps. There's different types of psychology, say. So which one have you done, or what are you most proficient in, or where does that play?
It doesn't get as concentrated as you would think at an undergraduate level. You have to either do a master's or a PhD to get something in, say, like social psych or health psychology, or even clinical psychology, which is probably the most commonly known one because that's your average psychologist. But at an undergraduate level, it's more just an introductory class to all of those. So showing you research and showing you all the different concentrations you could do. So it's just very kind of bare minimum. With any undergraduate degree, that doesn't really have any specialty unless you're doing something like engineering. So it doesn't have a lot of utility, I don't think. It's a very versatile degree because you're not specialized, you can do a lot more.
Yes.
So I've been traveling around doing admin work, and because I have a psychology degree, I can market myself as someone that understands various personalities in the workplace, and I'm very adaptable. So it has that advantage. But then when you're actually trying to look for some straightforward utility from your degree, you're kind of at a loss unless you do a master's or a PhD.
Okay, well, I like the broad element. I mean, put it this way: if I was to decide I was going to commit to 5 years in college, I think I'd do 5 1-year-long broad courses, if that makes sense, instead of going too far down one particular avenue, say.
Yeah.
But if you were to gravitate to, do you gravitate to any one particular aspect of psychology, or?
I guess if I had to choose, well, it would be social psychology, because that's the kind of cliche psychology that most people would think of. It's, personality disorders, different personalities in general. So that would be what interests me the most, and I guess why I started the degree in the first place, because I would have gone towards psychology to learn more about people, because as I was saying before we got on, I want to write a book, but I don't trust myself to, or at least at the time I didn't trust myself to make believable enough characters that people would want to rally behind, like very unique people in the story, with all their different idiosyncrasies. And so I took out a degree about people so that I could make more believable characters.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
And what's the book about? Or can you how much of it can you tell me?
Yeah. I'll give you a bit. So the book will be toying with evolutionary genetics, and I guess it'll be a story of how we've forcibly adapted ourselves to the limited resources on the planet that we've, somehow messed up in this apocalyptic universe that I'm going to create.
Okay, and can you outlay for me and everyone else what genetics are? Like, I have a rudimentary understanding of them at best, but give us your version
of what I'm going to do, or my understanding of genetics. Cause
well, a bit of both, whichever you're more comfortable with. Say.
Okay. So what the angle I'd be going with on the book would be, I guess how we took technology that's developing now, because this technology does exist, in CRISPR and like, what are they called? Designer babies, people that, want to have perfect babies that come out with blonde hair and blue eyes and look like Brad Pitt or something. You can do that. Very expensive, but it's something that can be done now. But I want to take that same technology and have it be used on a much wider scale, like on the entire planet, so that we've adapted to, say, survive on less water or eat different kinds of foods that are only available after we've scorched the planet or the sun's become too intense or something like that. So, but then I want to take it a step further, where the genes and the evolutionary process that we thought we had under control goes out of our control to keep on adapting in real time.
It takes on a life of its own, say.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the angle I'd be going with. Yeah.
Okay, and I think a lot of us will have seen the picture of the first 1 megabyte hard drive being loaded into a lorry on a forklift. Have you seen that picture?
No.
You know the way you can get, let's say, a 5 gig memory stick now that, you know, or even you can probably get a terabyte memory stick that just clips onto your keys these days.
Yeah.
But the first 1 meg, the very first external hard drive, say, was the size of a house, and it didn't have the space to hold a photograph on it. But at the time, it was fucking cutting edge. It was the tip of the spear, and there's really cool photos coming out of places like maybe Dell and IBM, the crowds that would have developed this first, and literally a 1 megabyte hard drive being picked up and loaded into a truck via forklift, like. And I wonder, is there me that loves me analogies, I wonder, is there an analogy there between what happened there and what's happening now with CRISPR? So now CRISPR, the stage that CRISPR is at, and, you know, messing about with genes generally, they're loading it into the truck these days.
Yeah.
But in 50 or 100 years' time,
exactly,
you'll have a gene splicing app on your phone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So that's what I'm trying to figure out is, like, I've been kind of taking the time out to really map what chronological events led to what happens in the story, the premise, because looking at examples like of J.R.R. Tolkien or even J.K. Rowling, who have such a well-established world, they have a different language, they have myths and, you know, genealogies and families, and a very just specific world that's very believable, that's drawn so many people in. And, you know, you've been able to make movies out of them because all the ingredients were already in the book, so well laid out. And I want to be able to create something like that, not because I want a franchise out of it. That's not the goal. If that happens, that would be cool. But but I don't see that in the foreseeable future. I just want to create something that is believable, but fantastic at the same time, that will take you out of whatever world you're in and transport you into mine, into whatever universe I send you to.
And have you explored the idea of setting this, you know, on Mars maybe, or, you know, something to that effect?
No, I actually hadn't. That's an interesting thought. Huh.
I want at least 10% of anything I mention in this podcast goes into the book. Okay,
it'll go to you and Elon Musk.
Yeah. So what's the downside, or what are we currently doing? Because I've heard this idea of designer babies, and as far as I'm aware, you know, if you want to have your kid with, you know, blue eyes, or one blue eye and one green eye, like, that's all fairly pedestrian these days. It's kind of it's no big deal, really, is it?
So
it's expensive, say.
Yeah, very expensive. As far as I know, what it's being used for mainly is like you can get genetic screenings, so see if whatever fetus or baby that is, you know, growing over the next 9 months will have Down syndrome or a certain kind of genes, and that can lead parents to a path of, you know, do we carry on with this pregnancy or do we terminate, as the clinical term is. Okay. So that's a very controversial tool that it is now, or the controversial take on. Not take. What am I saying?
No. I get where you're coming from entirely. You can see how religious people, say, would have a massive issue.
Yeah.
Not even religious people. That's not fair to say. Anybody who's concerned with, you know, morals or ethics, would be mad not to be concerned.
Yeah.
Because if you can screen for, you know, brown eyes or blue eyes, or, you know, presumably you can do it with height and, you know, skin color and, you know, deafness or blindness and things that, you know, there's nothing wrong with these things, but, you know, do you want your child to have them? And then I think we actually were just chatting beforehand again, and you mentioned the idea of the kind of flip side of that, whereby, let's say for argument's sake, a deaf couple might prefer to have a deaf child. Yeah,
exactly. And even families with dwarfism would prefer to have a child that also has dwarfism rather than being adult of full height.
Yes, so, from a...
Just because it's their way of life and their culture, and they want to be able to pass that on to their child, and they don't see it as a disability, just a different way of life. Whereas, like, I would view being deaf as a disability. I rely so much on my hearing to cross the street, to hear if someone's rang the doorbell, to have conversations like this one. You know, I can't read your lips and I can't read your thoughts, so I need my hearing. But there are people that would want to be deaf because they see it as, like, their way of life, you know, like, they don't know any other way, and to have hearing would almost be a disability to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, no, it's just fascinating. And CRISPR, can you explain what that is in limited fashion? Like, but my understanding of it is they're the company that does what we're talking about.
Yeah,
and that's the extent of my knowledge. Are they American based? Do Google own them?
I don't think they're American based. I don't know.
Where
I also have a
based?
very limited understanding or knowledge of CRISPR. I have a feeling it's German.
Leave it up to the Germans.
Yeah. Oh, I was about to say something controversial.
This is the platform
I was
for
going
it.
to say up to no good again. Sorry.
So to all my hundreds of thousands of German listeners, I'm very, very sorry.
Sorry that I'm being your stereotypical American here.
Of course, yes.
Representing
Jesus,
my
yes.
really racist country, here I am.
Tone down the crassness, please, and the loudness.
I can't,
okay?
It's ingrained. CRISPR, as what I understand, is that you can either make the way that gene editing is now is that you can make something hereditary or not hereditary. So there, you could edit genes in someone like a light switch, you know, turn something on or off. You know, genes that would make you predisposed to having some type of condition later in life, or maybe even some type of mental illness. I think that that's something you can do.
And when you say condition, it could be, you know, you have a certain gene that will predispose you to Alzheimer's or diabetes.
Yeah, or
you know,
give you cataracts later in life.
yes, or
something
cancer or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So something like that. But it's only limited to me. So if they did it to me, I would only have it, but all my children will still get cataracts. Or they can do it so that I will have cataracts, but all the generations to come from my bloodline will not, because of whatever gene editing they did. And I think that's what's happening now. You know, I'm not entirely sure, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. No, basically what I try and do with the kind of conversations that I'm having is give people a window into different topics. So I don't expect you or anybody else to be that much of an expert in something, so long as you're interested in it.
Yeah.
And that interest is, like, what do they say? Enthusiasm is contagious. So if somebody's listening to this, if they want to go off and find out exactly what CRISPR is, I mean, just stick it into Wikipedia and you'll find out where it's from.
And then tell me, because I obviously don't know.
Exactly, yeah. So don't get too hung up on the details. If we get the gist of it across, that's a success.
Yeah. So that's another thing that's kind of put a roadblock in front of me in terms of writing my book. It's because I tend to be a perfectionist, like most other people.
Yeah.
You're your own worst critic, and I don't want to do something half-ass. I don't want to write a sci-fi book about gene editing technology that I clearly don't know much about. I don't even know its origins. So I want to be able to learn more, but there's only so much that I can learn off a TED Talk or off listening to a Sam Harris podcast. Even, you know, reading books that I find or that are recommended to me off Goodreads or something. So I'm toying with the idea of taking a master's in some type of genetics, or if I'm going to, you know, do health psychology or evolutionary studies or environmental studies. I really don't know what's next because I have too many interests, which, you know, isn't a bad thing, but it is when you're trying to pick a specific program and a career path for the rest of your life.
That's indicative of people who are perfectionistic, I think, though, is it? That you can't settle on something, because if you settled on something, then you'd have to kind of perfect it.
Yeah.
So if you, like, I find that, like, I'd be quite perfectionistic, if that's a word. It is now. But I'd be quite the perfectionist, and that sounds great on the outset, but realistically, I've winded up having a load of half-finished projects.
Right.
Because if I finish something, and it wasn't done perfect, it'd be a bad job.
Yeah.
But if I have finished something, it's like, oh, that's not quite finished yet.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad job, it's just unfinished.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be very much the same. I think that's one of the anxieties that really troubles a lot of teenagers when they're leaving high school, and and going on to college is that, you know, you have to make a decision about what type of degree you're going to get, but that degree will more than likely shape your future. And how are you supposed to know what the hell you're going to do with the rest of your life at the age of, 17 or 18? It's a really, really daunting decision.
Very.
But even now, as a 23-year-old woman and trying to pick another degree, like, I've traveled around a bit. I've already taken one out. I have no idea what I want to do with the next one whenever it comes. Like, I feel I'm constantly surrounded by question marks about the future.
The end game is writing, though, is it?
Yeah, I've always been writing.
Okay.
I've had a journal since I was 7. I've always written, but the hard part is that I've always written about my own personal experiences. I've never written from the perspective of another person, and that's what I'm finding very hard at the moment, is coming up with dialogue. So I have no qualms with coming up or creating, the imagery and the finer details of the world. So, like the city itself or the landscape around it, even the trees, the animals, I can do all of that. But as soon as someone needs to open their mouth, I shit the brick. And I can't do it. Because I don't want to make dialogue that's corny, that makes you cringe. You're like, oh, God, these characters are so one-dimensional.
And is
I
there...
would hate myself if I did that.
Do you need a counterpart, say? Do you need somebody who, loves writing dialogue, does nothing but write dialogue, but when it comes to, the scene or the story,
Right.
they shit a brick,
Yeah, I don't
Or
know.
is it a solo endeavor?
It's definitely a solo endeavor.
Okay.
I think it's just something I'm not practiced at, so I just need to do more of it. So I think that what is going to happen is just going to be like a few years or a few drafts of just really shitty writing, and then keep polishing it. Hopefully not forever, but polish it until I feel somewhat satisfied with it. I don't feel like you'll ever be fully satisfied with your own work. At least I don't.
No, not if you're perfectionistic.
Yeah. So I'll get it to a point where I'm okay with people reading it, and hopefully that'll be good enough. But yeah, so I've kind of have to resign myself to the fact that I'm going to make several drafts, and it's going to be quite a lengthy process.
No, absolutely, and
Yeah.
I think monetizing your creativity is particularly hard as well. So you're going to have to basically get a job and have a career or move around
Yeah.
and work your ass off
Exactly.
and do this on the side.
Which is really hard too, because I tried writing after I graduated, but as soon as I left Austin, I moved to Portland and was working at a clinic there, and that was emotionally and mentally exhausting because I was working at a pediatric eating disorder clinic and talking to parents on the phone every day. Like, that just sucked my brains out. By the time I got home, all I wanted to do was sleep and eat chocolate and maybe cry. Like, I couldn't write
Jesus,
anymore.
A pediatric eating disorder, so kids with
Yes.
bulimia and stuff like that.
6
Fuck.
to 18 years old. We'd take as young as 6. Sometimes we get 4 or
Jesus.
5-year-olds, or parents of 4 and 5-year-olds that would call.
And is that an illness, or is that a psychological thing, or is it a symptom of abuse, or what is that?
It can be all of that. It can be a combination of things. There's a lot of factors that go into having an eating disorder. So it can be hereditary is part of it. Like, you could be genetically predisposed to having an eating disorder.
And can you be screened for it, say, before it
Maybe, yeah.
manifests itself?
Yeah, maybe there's like a gene that makes you predisposed to it. I'm not sure. There's just, with anything, there's a lot of factors that feed into it. But typically what happened with the younger kids is that they would have a restrictive eating disorder. So say they were eating some popcorn one night with you in front of the TV, and they choke on a piece of popcorn. You get the popcorn out, they're okay for the next couple of days, but then you realize that they don't want to eat popcorn anymore. Then they kind of stop eating crunchy foods altogether. Then it stops with solids, and it just stops with food in general because they're scared of swallowing anything because they're going to choke. By that point, they've lost a lot of weight. Their heart rate's going down. They might need to be hospitalized. And so what the clinic I did, how they handled that kind of restrictive eating disorder is a nasogastric tube. So they'd shove the tube up your nostril, down the back of your throat, into your stomach. And then they would kind of tuck the leftover, the tube behind your ear. And that would feed into like a little food bag that you'd carry around with you. Like almost like an IV, but just going through your nose. And then they would slowly reintroduce food until you could eat on your own again.
Right, Jesus.
So that's typically what happened with the younger kids. Although there were some very young, I think the youngest person I saw there with anorexia was a very young boy. He was 7.
And anorexia being refusing to eat, bulimia being throwing up what you've eaten. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anorexia is kind of you tend to see it in people that are very intelligent, very perfectionists. They tend to be, you know, like captain of the football team or excellent ballerinas or valedictorian.
Obsessive.
Yeah, just very driven people that want to have control over everything. So it's a control thing more often than not. So controlling what goes in your body, controlling the weight of your own body, like resisting the urge to eat. So it requires a lot of strength, although most of the time all they're thinking about is food. All the time.
But obviously, well, not obviously, but you know, if you haven't eaten in you know, days or weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, food is at the forefront of their mind.
And I always thought that anorexia, again, not to quiz you as though you're an expert, but
right.
I always viewed anorexia as being a body image thing. Is that not the case, or it's probably that as well, is it?
Yeah, it can be that as well. So there's people that have what's called body dysmorphia. So they look in the mirror and they see a whale, but when we look at them, we see nothing but skin and bone. Yeah,
I actually heard a psychologist, not his answer to that, but his kind of psychotherapeutic way of explaining to, let's say, a person who was very slim, who thought they were obese, was he placed his thigh, he stretched out his leg and placed his thigh in a piece of paper, and he traced out the outline of his thigh.
Oh.
So you have the width of his thigh on this piece of paper, and then he got the patient to do the same, and they draw the line, and then when he handed her the two pieces of paper, she could not wrap her head around what she was looking at, because she was no longer looking at actually herself, which she had the dysmorphia with. She was looking at 4 lines on, you know, 2 on each piece of paper.
That's really cool.
And she just couldn't get her head around how one could be so much bigger than the other, and one was obviously hers and one was obviously his.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, but that's psychology for you, isn't it? Like, it's just so it's insane, like
how you can get trapped in your own head.
Yeah, very
incredible.
much so.
Yeah, well, it's incredible for me in like a research perspective, not so much for the people going through it.
Yeah, the poor tortured souls.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But yeah, that was my first job after I graduated.
Right, and a great job to have, in bearing in mind the book that you're planning to write.
Yeah.
Like, kind of an insight into that kind of treatment world, because presumably with and again, I don't know how gene editing works, but is it do you go in for like a 15-minute procedure, or is it something that happens over time? Or?
I don't know. I can make it that way in the future. I can whatever universe I create, I'm basically God, which is really cool because I can make anything happen. I can kill off whoever I want. I can make everybody have 7 thumbs on one hand rather than all your normal fingers, and I can make that the norm just because I can do it.
And is there a utopian or dystopian element, or both, to the book?
I don't want to make like a dystopian apocalyptic universe where all the teenagers fall in love and they're all like really sexy or something. That's not what I want to write, because there's so many of those. But it'll be a bit dystopian. Like the world's gone to shit if we have to resort to, like, you know, being able to survive on half a glass of water for a week, if that's where we're at.
And again, that's part and part what you're talking about. So gene editing the human genome so that you can survive on
forcibly adapting ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically ramping up evolution.
Yeah. Playing Darwin.
There's a name.
Yeah.
Playing Darwin.
Yeah.
Nice. Again, I want 10%, at least 10% if you go with the name Playing Darwin.
Okay.
But you mentioned Sam Harris there a minute ago, and have you listened or watched or read any of his thoughts on AI?
Yeah, AI scares the shit out of me.
Well, the reason that I mention it is there's a runaway element to that. There's hitting what they call the singularity, when the machine can essentially think for itself. So you write a piece of software that can write a piece of software that improves itself, that writes a better piece of software, that writes a better piece of software, and you have that positive feedback loop and an escape velocity.
And then it kills all the humans.
Pretty much, yeah. But the reason that I mention that is there's an element of that in gene editing, or is there? Like giving genes the power, or changing genes, you know, could you get to a point whereby the genes start kind of making the decisions themselves, in a sense? Or
that's a beautiful way to put it. The genes start making the decisions for themselves, because I want to have whatever characters are in my book to evolve in real time, so that, you know, it's like I was saying earlier, say I'm in a big open field, a lion comes out of nowhere, starts chasing me. I either outrun this lion or I'm lion food. So my genes they start changing so that I have the ability to have, say, stronger muscles or more like better cardio. I don't really know how it would work so that I would be able to outrun that lion and not become lion food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or give you the ability to jump into a tree and
yeah,
get
exactly.
to
Or
safety.
like sprout wings. I have to think of that logistically, but that's crossed my mind because I've always wanted to have wings.
Yeah, yeah. And what you started off in Austin.
Yeah.
So give us a bit of a background from yourself, because you're obviously not Irish.
Yeah.
So what's your
How far back do you want me to give a background?
what's the gist like? I mean, where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Sure. Okay. So my parents are from Peru. They both grew up in Lima, or really Miraflores. So then they would have left Miraflores when they were about 25 or 30 and gone to America. And that's where my brother and I were born and raised. We're the first American generation of our family. And I was born in Miami, Florida, lived there till I was about 10. My family had really, really bad economic trouble, so we ended up uprooting from Florida. None of us wanted to leave because we were right by the beach. We were maybe like 20 minutes away, beautiful weather year round. Ended up going out to the middle of bumfucking nowhere in Texas to Coppell because my aunt had a house there and she ended up leasing it to us. Well, we were staying there for free for a bit until we could afford to pay the lease. And at the time, Coppell was a small town. It's not anymore. But it was tons of cows. My parents had lived there actually before when it was only like a few roads in Coppell, and now most of those roads are 4 lanes wide or something. Just the main ones that go across from the different highways because it's a transit town. 7-Eleven have their headquarters there now. Amazon's going to have their headquarters because it's about 10 or 15 minutes away from the DFW airport. So it's a really good place to work in logistics or transport or anything like that. So that's why Coppell has become a new hub. I hated Coppell. Oh, I hated it enough to leave. As I was growing up, it was Mayberry. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. Mayberry?
No, what's Mayberry?
Mayberry is picture like a big classic American porch, and you've got mom and dad out there on the rocking chair sipping on sweet iced tea. The kids are playing,
fanning themselves because it's so humid. That
exactly.
Kind of crack.
They're all wearing like white linen, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. The straw hats.
Yeah, or there's like a shiny bottle of glass Coke sitting there. You know, it's like a Coca-Cola advertisement. People are playing kickball in the streets. Nothing bad ever happens. That's Coppell. It's Mayberry.
Okay, sounds terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's a really like white conservative bubble full of snobby kids that get really fancy cars at a young age. So
Okay.
I wouldn't have fit in with that stereotype because I would have showed up to Coppell as this very brown girl, dark hair, like enormous curls. And all the girls had straight blonde hair and
Funny accent.
Yeah, and it would have been freezing for me because we got there in November and everyone looked at me, you know, like, who is this fucking foreigner? Even though they're 4th graders, so they were probably thinking that because 4th graders are cruel. And they're all asking me, you know, like, where are you from? And I said, oh, well, I'm from Peru. And they go, oh, right. That's a city in Mexico, right? Jesus, no. It's in South America. Well, where's South America? But probably in like thick Southern, like, where's South America? And yeah, so that's kind of the environment that I grew up in. Now it's a very kind of culturally diverse area. Way more people of Indian descent than you would find white people now because of the school district and tiger parenting, you know, parents wanting their kids to excel.
What's that? Sorry, tiger parenting?
Tiger parenting, yeah.
What's tiger parenting?
Tiger parenting, think of like really aggressive parents that will only accept A's, and if you bring home a B, you're sleeping outside, no dinner.
Right.
Yeah, no hugs unless you graduate from high school with a 4.0, then I'll give you your first hug of your life. That's tiger parenting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And why are tiger parents called them drawn to this place?
Because Coppell has one of the best public school districts in Texas. So, and we have one of the best athletic programs as well. And it's a very wealthy area. It would be one of the top wealthiest areas in Texas. So it's a very ideal place to raise your child because it's very safe. The school is good. You're right next to Dallas or Fort Worth if you're commuting. So it's just a very ideal spot for parents to raise their kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And not ideal for you to grow up in because obviously you grow up hating it. But then you leave this bubble and you realize, oh my God, Coppell is really not that bad. Well, I thought it was awful because I ended up going to Austin and realized I'm just a big dirty hippie and I don't fit in with anyone from home.
Austin's the place for you, so.
Yeah, Austin really is the place for me. I really blossomed there, I guess.
And what age were you when you up sticks to Austin?
I would have been 19. So I didn't do the normal college route. Most kids will graduate high school and immediately go for their 4-year degree. They would have left home.
I'm sorry, sorry to cut across you, but what age does that happen? Because typically here in Ireland, you'd be 17, more than likely 18, and when you finish, let's say, secondary school, which is the equivalent of high school, is it?
Yeah.
And then you go off to college, so
Yeah.
you'd be 17 at the youngest, say, in college. 18 would be more typical. Is that the same in the
Yeah,
States?
so you would typically graduate high school at the age of 17 or 18.
Okay, so
And
same as here.
Yeah, I think you have to legally be in school until you're 18.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But most people would just immediately leave home after that and go straight to the university, but I didn't really have the financial means to do that. So I lived at home for the first year and a half of my college experience, and I went to a community college, which was kind of soul-crushing because all my friends left and they were off doing these big things, and I felt like I was trapped in this Mayberry bubble with my parents going nowhere, and I'd end up being a barista in my hometown for the rest of my life. It's a really hard time because I thought I was going nowhere. But I think that year and a half at home not only saved me a lot of money, saved me a lot of struggles at school, like in terms of trying to keep my GPA up, because the classes I was taking were easier, and I was able to transfer in like that, having all my basic classes done, and then I just go straight into my degree. But I think it really gave me the drive to just leave, just to want to get up and go. Because since I've graduated, I've been kind of nonstop traveling. And whenever I go home, it's just to be home, rest, kind of look around, remember why the fuck I left, and then get up and go again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it really gave me drive to just, like it showed me my biggest fears, and then it also showed me how not to fall into them. So it was a really tough year and a half of learning. Like at the time, I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as punishment.
Yes, of course.
But after that, I think I really grew as a person.
No,
in a way that my friends couldn't.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very humbling experience.
Yeah, they had it nearly too good.
Yeah.
Like I only spoke recently there in a solo episode about the idea of having a heaven to strive for and a hell to avoid.
Yeah.
That was and probably still is your hell to avoid, not ending up like that. So.
Exactly, because they would come home and, they didn't mean any badness by it, but they would come home and they would see other people that would be, high school burnouts that would have never left Coppell and are still in the area, and they would always be like, oh God, they're going nowhere, look at them. And they'd kind of look at me and be like, oh no, but you're different. It's not going to happen to you. I'm like, is it really that different? You're just being an ass. So, and now friends of mine that have had to go back kind of realize what an experience that is to stay at home, like to go back to the nest after you've already flown out of it. And I keep telling them, like, it's going to suck. You're going to feel really isolated, but it's going to be humbling and you're going to learn a lot about yourself. So it's funny now that the roles have reversed.
Yeah.
I can't hide the kind of satisfaction of it too. Like,
the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what did you love about Austin? Because I've been to Austin. I met you over there.
Yeah, I forgot
originally.
about that. Yeah.
So I kind of have a better understanding of Austin than most people would.
Yeah.
Certainly than I hadn't a clue what or where Austin even was.
Yeah, I took you touring around in the car.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you were a great guide. But
Yeah.
can you outlay for people, what Austin is? Because Austin isn't just another American city.
No.
I think more so than any other American city. Like every American city will kind of claim, or at least try to claim, that they're
Right.
not just another American city. But
But they all
Austin,
are, yeah.
Austin really is out on its own.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Austin is the liberal safe haven of the South. So that in itself makes it a very unique place, because
Yes.
the characters that gravitate to there, even from all across America, will go into the deep South, a notoriously conservative and racist place, but find this one speck of green, beautiful hippiness out in the middle of southern West Texas.
And it is green.
Yeah, it's in the green
only
belt.
come to mind.
Yeah, and that's
now
another
to say
surprising
it.
thing, is that there's so much vegetation. It's very hilly, which is very different to the rest of Texas, because Texas is pretty much flat. And the weather's gorgeous most of the time. And there's great swimming holes, like aquifers, creeks, lakes. There's a really big outdoor scene to be had in Austin. Like a lot of outdoor bars where people will walk around barefoot with their dogs and have beards that touch their knees. Like that's that kind of place.
Yeah, and why didn't it, given where it is and how Garden of Eden-esque
Yeah.
it is, why didn't it become a kind of a whites only haven, if that makes sense?
That's kind of what's happening now. There's a lot of gentrification that's going on in Austin to make more like more touristy areas. So like a lot of the downtown. Remember going to Rainy Street? It's the first place we brought you. We went to a place called the Container Bar, which was So that whole area was a neighborhood full of primarily Black and Latin American people.
Yeah,
but they
class,
were
real cool, bespoke, groovy.
Yeah, exactly.
Austin-esque.
Until you realize that all the white people came in, bought them out, destroyed their houses, rebuilt them into craft breweries.
Jesus.
Kills the magic, right?
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, but that's what's happening in Austin. So most of more genuine parts would be East Austin, which is where a lot of people don't really go out to yet. So it's still like the hipster part of Austin would be out in the East.
And is that where we would have seen the food trailers? Is that what they're called? Or
food trucks? Well, they're kind of all around,
trucks?
But there's like you have to want to go to East Austin to go there because most people will stay. A lot of the residents in Austin will either be like recent graduates or currently in Austin for school. So you kind of avoid the West Campus area if you want a genuine experience. You either go south or you go east. So you go across the highway because Austin's built like a grid. And so you go across the, I think it's 35. And then there's like a whole area that's more run down. It looks a bit more shabby, but there's much better food and a much better like quiet scene. It's not next to 6th Street where it's like tons of frat boys trying to buy you drinks filled with roofies. You go and you have a nice drink with your friends out in East Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit more laid back. I don't know if you went there.
Oh, God, I don't know, being honest.
Yeah.
Yourself and Pat brought me God knows how many different places, but
Yeah.
I love the place. And,
Yeah.
but where did it get its, like, what's that tagline? Keep Austin weird? Like
Yeah, keep Austin weird.
Where did that even come from?
I don't know, but Portland's stolen it. So Portland now does keep Portland weird, but it would have started in Austin. And
They do not. Portland have ripped them off, have they?
Yeah, exactly.
But there is synergies, if that's the right word, between the two. That I've never been to Portland, but I believe they're quite similar.
Yeah, Austin has food trucks. Portland has food carts. Keep Portland weird, keep Austin weird. They both have their like a giant population of hipsters that drink nothing but craft beer and tacos.
What brought
everyone eats tacos?
What brought the hipsters to Austin and Portland? Like, what was the draw originally?
Austin was always a really weird place, but then it became a cool kind of weird, and then it just kind of became a national sensation and an international sensation because it's the live music capital of the world. I'm not really sure how it became this big thing, but my cousin's husband grew up in Austin and would have seen, like, the Austin that he grew up with and the Austin that is now is totally different. It's like really disingenuous to call that Austin the same one. Because back then it was cool to be in Austin. It was actually really strange, and there were hardly any skyscrapers. And now, like, the Austin skyline is dotted with huge buildings because everyone's trying to make a profit out of how cool Austin is.
Of course, yeah. That was a cool element. That it was a double-edged sword, really. There was a lot of restaurants that we went to. You had to queue for half an hour to get near the place.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that is the reason that there was queues literally out the door, down the street and around the corner is because they didn't embrace the rampant capitalism of we're full every day, so let's add more tables.
Yeah.
We've filled those every day, let's add on another wing.
Yeah.
And that's it's so cool though, because it keeps, I don't know, it keeps it kind of special, it keeps it unique, and it saves room for other people to start up and to have more of the same, as opposed to having you know super restaurants that seat 500 people and no one cares. Yeah,
it's definitely a city that embraces local businesses and just really good food. Most of the time, it's not the case now because I've seen the drag since, but the drag is the main part of West Campus that faces Guadalupe Drive or Street or Road, whatever it is. And typically before, you wouldn't have seen any chains on there, but now there's like a 7-Eleven and a Target and everything on there. But Austin for a long time really wanted to keep chain restaurants out of the downtown area and only have local restaurants in. Since then, that's kind of changed because the population is growing rapidly and stuff. But still, you will find a lot more small businesses in the Austin area than you would chain restaurants. And you'd even go for a really long drive out to get really good barbecue. So there's the Salt Lick, which is maybe 30 or 40 minutes out into the middle of nowhere. You drive south for ages, like through farmland and stuff until you come to this random barbecue. But it's got the biggest parking lot ever, and there's a huge line, and it's nothing but meat and some sides, and they only accept cash. And you have to know, whoever's driving out there has to know, kind of how to get there, because if you go at night, which you more than likely will, you'll find deer on the road and stuff, so you have to be willing to drive through all the big hills and whatnot to get there.
Class.
Yeah, it's a good experience. Really delicious food. I'm promoting Salt Lick. I also want 10% of the profits.
And you were in Austin then for what would it have been, 4 or 5 years?
Oh, not long enough. Maybe 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then finished up your degree there.
Yeah.
And up sticks to Portland.
Yep.
Where you were working in...
Yeah, Cartini Clinic is the name of the clinic.
Okay, and that was
Pediatric eating disorders.
Yes, Jesus, that is rough.
Yeah.
So how long were you there, or...
I would have been there from May to September. And then after September, the reason that I left so early is because Pat didn't have the right working requirements to be in America that long. So since he left, I didn't want to stay there by myself, and we had other plans. So I came here to meet him, and we traveled around for a bit. And then I went home, packed up the rest of my things, and we went to Australia for a year. We're there on a working holiday visa.
What were you doing over there in Australia? Did you get work over there? Or...
Yeah, I did. Oh, God, that was... probably one of the most half-baked things I've ever done, because we kind of showed up at the end of November. I flew on Thanksgiving Day, so I was flying with a belly full of turkey, getting ready, so excited about Australia, thinking, it was all going to work perfectly. We get there, it's hot as balls. and wherever we were, the house that we had first, it was all going really well until it got infested with huntsman spiders and cockroaches, and it was a hot box because it was like a garage that had been turned into some glorified studio flat. And so it was under the house. There was no sunlight really that came in. There was no air ventilation that would go through. It didn't have AC, so all we had was these fans that were circulating basically our sweaty air around. And we had another a glorified toaster oven thing where we had 2 rings and a toaster thing that was supposed to be an oven. So you could either use the 2 rings and not the oven, or 1 ring and 1 oven, and the oven on. Because if you tried to use all of it, it would cut out all the power in the house. Yeah, in our studio and the house that's actually above us, which was really nice and had AC and no bugs, because the bugs travel down into the depths of the house where we fucking were. So that was miserable because I didn't get work for about 2 months. I must have sent maybe 10 applications a day. And nobody told us that fucking Australians take all of December and January off to go have a holiday, and no one does anything. So we came literally at the worst time to the worst city, and we're in the worst apartment that was really expensive. So it started off it started on a really bad note. But on the 1st of February, I got work.
Right.
And I worked...
Again, I'm sorry to cut across you,
Yeah.
but what are the 2 months? December and January?
December and January.
Being the height of their summer?
Yeah, the height of the summer and the holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, and so most people just take off because all the kids are off from school. Christmas is right around the corner. New Year's, which is, the biggest celebration in the Sydney area. So a lot of people go to Sydney to see New Year's. The Chinese New Year as well. And some people will leave to go take skiing holidays. So a lot of people go to Japan. But yeah, February 1st, I started work. And I started working for the Scouts of Australia, the Queensland branch. Yeah, I learned so much about scouting that I will ever want to in my entire life. I don't know what to do with the knowledge now. It's just
tying knots and...
Oh, God. Ordering gray wolf badges because little Johnny figured out how to climb a fucking tree. It was a lot. And people take it so seriously. I picked up the phone so many times to people getting pissy because I wasn't addressing them with, District Commissioner Charles or something, because they're fucking volunteers. You do this for fun. Why are you getting so upset about it? Oh, So I dealt with that for about 6 months. Made some really good friends out of it, though. Lifelong friends. Ended up going to one of their weddings. Was invited to 2 other ones, but I don't have the money to go back and go to both. So in terms of people, like I made some really good friends there, but fuck me and fuck the Scouts. I'm never doing that again.
But it's funny though, because the Scouts that's a real American thing. Like it's a real kind of stereotypical American thing.
Yeah, which is why I was like, what the hell are they doing in Australia? So in America, it's separated to the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, but in Australia, it's just the Scouts, and it's basically the same thing. They still have, all the survival skills. Well, I feel like in Australia it's a bit more intense because you actually need to learn how to survive because there's a lot of things that want to kill you out there.
Yes, most things.
Yeah, most things. So I feel like they get better outdoor training than they would in America. But like there's still like the same kind of, I don't know, seediness from back in the day of older troop leaders molesting younger ones. So like that same kind of grossness was there, which I wasn't too surprised by because that's kind of the rumor. Or like when someone says they were in the Scouts, you go, oh yeah, and like did you get molested? Or
how often did you get
how often did you get molested? Yeah. So that was still present there. One of my poor friends actually was the officer that dealt with all the complaints and like old lawsuits. And since I was the secretary, I would have to do a lot of the invoices for the different lawyers that were involved in the cases. And I was helping like selling off some of our property assets to pay for the lawsuits and stuff like that.
Jesus.
Yeah. So some of it was heavy. A lot of it was just really monotonous work. So I could listen to podcasts and just do paperwork all day. But I was by my friends, so I didn't mind it too much. And I ended up being like a 5-minute cycle away from work.
Oh, happy days, that in itself, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't too bad. And then after my 6 months were up, because I can only work 6 months with one employer on that visa, we ended up moving down to Sydney. And at that time, there was only 4 months left on my visa. So I worked 4 months for the City of Sydney Council as a business support officer at the Pine Street Creative Arts Centre, which was a very small office. The office is smaller than the tunnel that we're in now. Like, cut it in half, and that's the office I was in.
Right.
Maybe about, at max, 3 people in the office a day. So I really got to know everyone that I worked with. But really turbulent atmosphere there. Because there's a lot of artists that don't know how to do any admin work, don't know how to be organized.
Creative people who don't know how to be organized?
Right.
I don't believe it.
Oh, so surprising. And they all have the biggest egos, and they were at each other's throats. They're like, I would come to the office with people sobbing and yelling and like slamming doors, and I felt like I was in middle school and I was the one adult there, even though I was the youngest by at least 20 years. So
coming from the Scouts to this.
Yeah, so the person that I worked for was a very meticulous, very organized, friendly man. And he was the IT guru for all of Scouts Queensland. So he taught me a lot, and I became like pretty savvy with Microsoft programs or Adobe because I would create like fillable PDFs for him and stuff like that. So he needed someone that could keep up with him, and I was that person. But then I get to Pine Street, and it was basically they created this new position because they knew they needed to get things organized in the environment, in their work environment, because they wanted to do business improvement. But they had no job description for me, no tasks. They basically just hired me, gave me an hourly wage, which was great. But then they were like, "Oh, right, well, here you go." And I knew nothing about anything, so it was very much figuring out everything on my own, and then telling everyone what they needed to do if they wanted to keep the Creative Arts Center running. So I did a lot of like spreadsheets for them, organizing the budget, like figuring out how to do payroll more efficiently, organizing everyone's contact details, editing the website, like organizing lesson plans. So that they didn't even have lesson plans for all the courses they'd been running. So I helped get lesson plans in. I helped put the courses up on the website. So just general admin bullshit like that no one knew, like certain shortcuts in, like, you know how you press Control like C or Control V to copy and paste something?
Yes.
They didn't even know how to do like that, like simple things like that.
Yeah. That make a big difference.
Yeah.
You know, a compounding difference.
Yeah. So like I'm the kind of person that I can't look at my hands when I type. I need to be looking at the screen.
Okay.
And I can type really fast. But everyone there was like looking down and like
Yeah,
using one
index finger type
not
thing.
maybe even one hand to type.
Yes.
So just like pushing all the buttons, and it would take ages. So I would just type up everything for everyone.
That's just Australians for you, though, isn't it?
Yeah, fuck off. But like so work was better in Brisbane, but quality of life not so much. and work was shit in Sydney, but quality of life was superb. I got paid outrageously for what I was doing, and I was in a gorgeous city. We would go to the beach all the time. I had a car at that point because I ended up buying a really rinky-dink car that I named Maurice, so Maurice took us around. Maurice broke several times, the bastard. It was just why I gave him such a seedy name, because he's not to be trusted, the old man. So Maurice took us around a lot to different national parks, and yeah, so it was a good way to end the year. If the year had started like it did in Sydney, then we would have stayed a lot longer. Anyone listening to this podcast, if you're thinking of going on a working holiday visa to Australia, don't go to fucking Brisbane and don't land in Australia in December or January, for the love of God, and work with an agency, a recruitment agency, because they'll make it so much easier for you. Don't do what I did. That's all I have to say.
I've heard people say that the Australians, not that they're any more racist, or maybe they are, but they if they can give a job to an Australian, you ain't getting the job. Did you notice that or come across that at all? Or
yeah, I guess the work ethic is different out there. So a lot of times people would go home because, oh, my stomach hurts, I ate too much cheese. Oh, I'll go home, and then they won't be here for like 2 days. Whereas in America, if you have a headache, if you're like bleeding out on the desk, and like, oh, are you still alive? Great, finish that thing that I needed you to do. So like in America, no one gives a shit about you, so you always have to work. Whereas in Australia, I got sent home a lot, or people would try to send me home because I was like, oh, I kind of think I'm getting a migraine. They'd be like, oh, get up, like leave, as if I was gonna give them my migraine too and infect everyone there.
Yeah, you were contagious.
Yeah, I mean, which is great because I got to go home a lot for little
oh, here
things.
comes that migraine again.
Yeah. Oh darn, can't work anymore. They're very, well, I don't want to say they're very relaxed, because I expected them to be, that, like, I had it in my head that Australians would be that kind of surfer cliche person that would just like want to be on the beach all day, like, oh, don't worry about it, mate. But they ended up being really kind of tight asses, and it's a really regulated country. Like, it's a nanny country.
Really?
Yeah, don't jaywalk, don't say that because it's offensive. Or like they have laws in Australia that prohibit you from saying anything publicly that would hurt somebody else's feeling, like harmful speech. Whereas in America, you protect the speech you hate the most, which is one thing that I found really different. But it's a very kind of conservative, regulated country, and they're not as relaxed as you'd like them to be.
And how does that kind of manifest? Like, how did you notice that, say?
I think because people would hear my voice, they would immediately ask me about the political situation in America and Trump and like what's going on, but then they'd give me their view on it. So they'd be like, well, why don't you just buy all the guns back like we did here? That worked, so it'd work in America. I go, oh, yeah, but no. No, it wouldn't, right. Or else we would have done that.
Of course.
And we won't, because the NRA control everything. So
we're very black and white. It worked here. Why couldn't it work somewhere
exactly.
else?
Or like, oh, you can't be saying that. You should have. I bet everything would be better over there if you had, if you didn't have freedom of speech, but just like controlled it a bit, like we do here. I'm like, just different things like that. And Pat got pulled over he was riding his bicycle. He was parked at a street light, and the pedestrian crossing went on the opposite side we were trying to go. So he just, from the road, just went onto the pedestrian crossing, got pulled over by 3 cops, one on a bicycle, one on a motorcycle, and one in a car, telling him, you can't be fucking doing that, and we're going to give you a warning. Now give us all your details. And he goes, what the fuck?
Did they fall asleep and wake up in 1984? Like?
Yeah, right? And yeah, oh my God, they're watching everything. Because since I worked for the City of Sydney Council, I got to go into Town Hall and see all the CCTV cameras that they have for the area.
Yeah.
So, like, we were zooming into people's faces walking around this Sydney Opera House, and the camera was well across the harbour. But you can see them perfectly, like, watching people drink their coffee. And there's a team of people sitting there in front of the CCTV cameras just watching you do everything.
And what's their remit? I mean...
It's to catch people, like, fucking with... public property, defacing statues, or mugging someone.
And does that happen? Or?
It does, yeah. So
okay.
while I was up there, they got a call of someone like wandering around suspiciously in front of this place, and they were able to like go back on the footage and find the person, get like a description of them, and then they sent off the cops.
Right.
Yeah, but like they're watching you very well. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find like the sweeping generalization of you Yanks
Oh,
is...
I hate being called a Yank.
Really?
Well, because I'm not a Yank. I'm from the South. So anytime that...
What is a Yank then?
A Yank is someone from the North.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I always would have associated a Yank as an American.
No. See, everyone outside America would call us a Yank. But if you called me a Yank, like you did just now, like, it kind of rubs me up the wrong way because I'm from the South. I'm a Southerner.
Okay.
I grew up in Florida and in Texas. A Yank is someone you'd call from the Northeast coast.
The Northeast Coast being kind of New York.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
Boston.
a Yank to me, yeah.
Okay.
And we sound different and we approach people differently. I would look people in the eye more often, be very smiley. I wouldn't say howdy, but I'd wave
Y'all.
low. Yeah, I do say y'all.
You do, you do.
Yeah, a lot. But yeah, we're very, not very different, but you can kind of tell.
Yeah, well, look,
Very
it
different.
makes sense. I mean, I live here in Navan, and I'm completely different to a dub that lives, you know, a half an hour drive away
Yeah.
from here. So you extrapolate that to the state of Texas, which is in itself is probably 100 times bigger than Ireland, and then it's one of 50
I think
states.
it's 8 times bigger than
Is it
Ireland.
8 big? Well, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? 8 times big. One state,
Yeah.
8 times bigger than our entire country, say. But
Sorry, I cut you off. From
no,
what
no,
you
no,
were
you're
saying there.
grand. You're
Yeah.
grand. It's the nature of these conversations.
Yeah.
They tend to be quite tangential, like.
Don't call me a fucking Yank.
Note to self.
Yeah.
What do I call you then? Like, is there a
Julie? I don't know.
no? But you know what I mean. Like, is there if people from the Northeast are called Yanks, are you Southerners or
Oh, people would like jokingly call me a Southern Belle.
a Southern?
Southern Belle?
A
Like
Southern belle.
a girl from the South, like a young girl.
Okay, Southern Belle. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I don't think I'd really like being called Southern Belle either. I don't know. You just call me a Texan. Texans are very proud of being from Texas.
And do you identify as being
Texan?
Texan?
Yeah, rather than from Florida. Yeah.
Okay. Which is strange because you were in Florida for a lot longer than you were in Texas. Oh, were
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Well, I would have, well, not anymore, but I would have moved from Florida when I was about 9.5 or 10.
Okay.
And that, like, growing up in Florida was very different from growing up in Texas. But all of my friends now and all of my favorite memories are from Texas. So I would identify as a Texan.
Okay, and you were
Like, I barely know Florida anymore. I just have, you know,
childhood memory.
yeah,
type things.
exactly. Like, I remember being at certain beaches and, you know, finding seahorses and seaweed and, like, burying myself in the sand. Like, those are the type of memories that I have. I also remember speaking Spanish in schools, most of the people there being brown. I remember driving through the Everglades. I remember traffic being, like, tons of traffic happening because crocodiles would come out of the Everglades and go across the highway.
No way.
Yeah, and you need to, like, either you'd wait for animal control to come and pull them off, or there'd be a really ballsy person that'd get out of their truck and grab them by the tail and yank them to the side of the road so people could keep driving. Because you're not about to run over a giant crocodile in the middle of the road.
Yeah, yeah, of
So I
course.
remember stuff like that, but not so much specific places or people. I just remember kind of moments in time.
Yeah, no nuance, no,
Yeah.
no
Yeah,
real
exactly.
experiences, say. So you were, yeah, so what I was asking was, what's the, I suppose, what was your opinion of Australia before you went there? Because you must have had some idea what you were getting yourself in for the fact that you went there in the first place, and the fact that it's fucking forever away. Like,
Yeah.
you couldn't really have gone further.
Yeah, I knew that it was far away. I knew that there'd be kangaroos. I knew that there was the outback, and I expected to be making good money. That's all I knew. It was really bad of me. I planned so poorly. Like, we were coming up with cities, and I knew a few friends that had lived or were from Australia just because they had studied abroad in Texas, and because of where I lived, the nature of the co-op is to have a lot of international students and a lot of, like, a very multicultural micro community. And so I kind of went off of what they told me, which was not a lot because they were more interested in being America at the time. So when I showed up and I landed in the middle of the rainforest, surrounded by mountains, and there was all these flowers and crazy vegetation and these beautiful parrots, I was like, what the fuck? Am I in Hawaii? This is not what I expected. Where's all the red sand?
Yeah,
So
and
that-
the Aborigines and the boomerangs
Yeah,
and
exactly.
the kangaroos.
Yeah, I was waiting for a Crocodile Dundee to be at the airport picking me up. Like, I don't know what the hell I expected, but it definitely wasn't Brisbane. Brisbane is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, because it's a big country town still. It's very rural, and you really are in the valley of mountains, and surrounding you are all these, like, beautiful cockatoos and wallabies and kangaroos and all these different things that will kind of come into the city, and you only get glimpses of the wildlife that's just surrounding you every day. but the city sucks. There's nothing to do. It's very sleepy because people, the kind of person that moves to Brisbane is one that wants to settle down, have a family, and like they don't really go out except to go to the beach. And if you want to go to the beach, you put the whole family and the dogs in the car and you drive an hour north or south, up and down the Gold Coast or the Sunshine Coast, which we did a lot once we had friends with cars.
Okay, and sorry, remind me again where Brisbane is. Is it north, east, west?
Brisbane is on the Queensland coast, pretty much. So that's on the eastern side of Australia. It'd be northeast.
Okay, is that where the Great Barrier Reef is?
That's way more north of Brisbane. So the Great Barrier, well, part of it would come kind of down to that area.
It's fucking huge.
It's
though,
enormous,
fairness,
yeah.
So.
But you have to go way out to find it. But no, you'd be more accessible to the Great Barrier Reef up in Cairns or in like the Whitsunday Islands or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and the way I called you a yank there a minute ago and rubbed you up the wrong way, is there other things that people will say or refer to you as that you like or dislike, or what's the misconception say about America in general?
The first one that didn't come to mind wasn't about being American, but a lot of people would call me Mexican, which really rubs me the wrong way.
And why would they call you Mexican?
Because there's a huge Mexican population in Texas, because we're right next to Mexico, and we have like our history is really intertwined with Mexico, and our cuisine is very.
Well, technically, it was Mexico.
It was part of Mexico, yeah.
Fuckers stole it.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Long live the Alamo. And then it became the Republic of Texas, and it was its own country for a bit, and then we joined the Union. That's why.
Reluctantly. Am I right in saying that? No?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Okay, I'm gonna throw out a word here that I don't really know what it means. Confederacy.
Oh God!
There we go. That's the word. Was that the right word? Yes, it was.
Yeah. No, that would not. That's not me. Thank God.
But is it Texas or?
Yeah, Texas would have been part of the Confederacy.
Okay, and can you lay that out for me and everyone? What is the Confederacy?
So the Civil War happened in America because a few states seceded from the Union because they wanted to keep their slaves so that they could continue with their thriving cotton industry. And the Civil War started because Abraham Lincoln was like, hey, whoa. Well, I don't know if it was Abraham Lincoln at the time, but the Civil War started because you can't just leave the Union because you disagree with something that the government is making law or proposing to make law. So that's why it started. It wasn't a war about slavery. It was a war about leaving the Union, and then it became a war about slavery.
Okay, so and maybe just skip back a little bit because your American history is going to be infinitely better than an average Irish person's. Now, again, you're not here as an American historian by any stretch, but so long as the sentiment is there. So the Europeans headed over to America and basically took over.
Yep.
And were there for whatever amount of time until they didn't identify as being, let's say, British anymore. They identified as being American.
Yeah.
And realised that far too much of their wealth was heading on ships back to the motherland, basically being Britain.
Right.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, well, I think they just wanted to have their own
independence.
Autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was the British, they wanted to have their own autonomy
from.
Say.
Yeah, because the Spanish and the French and everyone was in like further south or way north.
And weren't maybe as organised or didn't have as much of a stranglehold or...
Yeah, because the American Revolution would have been from the 13 colonies, which was primarily British, if not all like English settlers.
Okay, and sorry, the American... What did you call it? The American Revolution?
Yeah, the American Revolution.
So that's when they fought against the British to gain their independence?
Yes.
Hence, what we now know as Independence Day?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, right.
17-something.
Okay.
There goes my American history.
Yeah. And from then, like, how much of a time frame was it to the Civil War? So if that was 17-something...
like 100 years later.
Okay, so 100 years later, you had this... Was it called the United States from the start? Do you know? Well, you had whatever it was, this union of states, call it.
Yeah.
And Texas, for whatever reason, do you know the reason, said, screw you guys, I'm going home. Is that what happened? They opted to leave, or they wanted to leave this union that had been established?
Yeah, they would have been... I'm not sure where Texas falls into all of that, to be honest. I don't really know the line, like what states were in the Confederacy, like what exact states.
we've jumped back and we've gotten back to where I kind of interrupted you in the first place from. So the Confederacy, what was that, say?
The Confederacy was like the other half of the United States that left. So the Union was all of the United States.
Okay.
And then the part that seceded itself was the Confederacy.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have the Confederate flag that you see a lot of racist, like, Southerners put on the back of the truck or something. You still see it a lot everywhere.
This is the same flag that would have been on the roof of the car in the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So some people don't see it as a racist thing. A lot of people see it as a historical thing, like a legacy.
Yes.
Yeah. But like, come on.
Really, again, I have no strong opinion on it either way because I haven't thought of it. Being honest, it doesn't mean anything to me.
I'm not too brown. I'm like, when I get pale, I get very pale, and I could blend into any white crowd. You never pick me out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In the summertime, I get quite brown, but I'm not that dark. And whenever I go with my friends to the beach in Galveston, like in the coast in the Gulf of Mexico, there's a lot of people there with Confederate flags that will give me dirty looks. And I'm born and raised in America.
Yes.
Like, that's the kind of feeling that whenever I see a Confederate flag, I get uncomfortable.
Yes, and with good reason.
Yeah, because people are still racist towards me. Subtly sometimes. It hasn't been outright since I was a child, but, like, I get really uncomfortable when I see it. Because I'm like, oh, I'm not one of you.
And what does having the Confederate flag hanging out of the back of your truck or whatever the hell it is, what does it symbolize? Does it symbolize, I'm a white nationalist, stay the fuck away from me, or I'm proud of my heritage, or what?
A bit of both.
Right.
It kind of depends on the person. So some people just see it as a flag, like, I'm from the South, my family's been here for ages, we are part of the Confederacy, this is our flag. Others will see it as like, make America great again. Fuck all you foreigners. Yeah, build that wall. Even though we're all foreigners, I don't know where you're getting that from. So, really, if anything, the Native Americans should be holding that Confederate flag and telling us all to get the fuck out. So,
while they build the biggest wall that's ever been constructed.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the Confederacy. There's one for you. You say that some people, for some people it's, browns out.
Yeah.
And for some people it's just part of their culture and, there isn't that racist undertone. Would you ever see a person of colour, if that's the right term, with a Confederate flag, say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
it does get really kind of, you don't really know what it symbolises or...
Yeah, because like sometimes you'll see it in college and you'll see it in frat houses, at least because I went to UT, so it's a big mixture. It's an amalgam of a hipster culture and a conservative white culture. And so you see these two kind of join when you have a fraternity or sorority, because they're people that want to be hipster, but they're also part of this like long line of tradition and brotherhood and stuff. So you find a lot of Confederate flags and a lot of really backwards views in a frat house, and you would also find Confederate flags more often than not.
The whole frat house phenomenon, I was just blown away by it. I really was. And you mentioned there that you were in UT, and again, University of Toronto for not Toronto, University of Texas, for people who mightn't have picked up on that.
Yeah.
And
at Austin, because there's a few University of Texas.
Okay, so at Austin.
Yeah.
When I was there, walking around the campus and seeing the frat houses, and to me, anybody who's watched any amount of television or 90210 or any of that crack, that's it.
Yeah, it's just like that.
You could just take out your camera and start recording, and all of a sudden you've got that quintessential campus, frat house, sorority girl. That's all. None of that's make-believe. That's all just...
it's all real. And the outrageous parties where people are jumping off the roof, people snorting cocaine off each other's stomachs, like scantily clad girls, really douchey guys, rappers that come out of nowhere and have these huge concerts in the back of some frat house. That is all real.
And all perfectly normal.
Yeah, and things that I've seen with my own eyes, like all of that is personal account.
Yes. You're not referring to the movies like I would say.
I'm referring to college memories from the frat house that was next door to my apartment building.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
The frat house. What are they? So, what's the difference? A frat house is for boys and a
sorority house is for girls.
So frat being short for fraternity.
Yes.
And then the sorority girls are the female equivalent.
Yeah, so sorority houses are really prim and proper. No men really are allowed to come inside after a certain hour. No guests unless they're actually no guests ever to sleep over, and no parties ever happen there. So they, have the big chandeliers, and you walk in, everything always smells like roses. It's very clean, and they do a lot of philanthropic work. So they'll have like a pancake breakfast where they make pancakes for everybody, and all the money goes to some local charity. That's kind of what a sorority does. Sororities also, you chug the bottle of vodka that you have in your room. You try not to let the person, whoever's in charge, see you chugging all the vodka, because you're not supposed to have alcohol in the house. And then you stumble with you and your friends to the fraternity house where all the guys have unlimited supplies of alcohol in the house, and you have a big rager.
Yes, okay. And these houses are on campus or off campus or both?
Off campus, but they're really close to campus, so they might as well be on campus. Well, at least the ones in UT. Now, there might be some that are on campus in other places.
Okay.
And it kind of depends on the school culture as well, because some places won't have as much of a Greek culture as UT would. So in the South, Greek culture is really big, because it's a lot of legacies, and people would be accepted into certain sororities or fraternities because they are a legacy. So, like, their mom was part of whatever, like, Pi Phi chapter back in the day, and so I'm a Pi Phi legacy, so I'll be accepted. At least that's how I think it works. All my friends were in fraternities and sororities. I never got it. I don't want to pay for my friends, so I didn't do it.
Of course, yeah. There's something very... what's the opposite of inclusive?
Exclusive?
There we go.
Yeah.
There's something very exclusive, and not in a good way there.
Yeah.
That idea of lineage.
Yeah.
Presumably wouldn't have been geared towards being accepting of you, say.
Yeah, I think it's a...
And obviously people like you.
Yeah, it's a culture that breeds bigotry. I think.
Elitism.
Yeah, but even though I'm foreign, I guess, I would still be accepted into a fraternity at a party because I'm a woman. And so, like, any girl that wants to show up to a party will get let in. Like, people will be like, oh, you're not in sorority, but, like, fuck it, we need more girls in the house anyways. So I'd get let in. But if I was with, like, say you wanted to come with me, they'd be like, nuh-uh, you either pay $50 or, like, you still can't come in.
I could pay in, could I?
Sometimes, depending on the event. So there's a big campus event that's called Roundup that the Greek society kind of puts on, and individual houses, like fraternity houses, will host really big acts. So, like, one year one house had the Yin Yang twins performing in their backyard, and you have to have like a wristband to the event in the first place that you get for free from the campus, but some houses will make you pay for certain wristbands. But if you're a girl, you more than likely can get in for free if they're not at maximum capacity, or you need to know someone on the inside. But a lot of guys would have to pay like $50 to get in or something like that.
And that's just to pay the act.
Yeah, because they're not part of the fraternity.
Okay, so these frat houses are venues as well as...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As well as what? Like, what are they?
Well, people live in them.
But what's the term for, like, is it a...
It's just a house.
Just a
it's
just a house.
It's a big house with tons of rooms in it. So.
And how many people will be living in the house? Because they are huge. I've seen them. They're
massive.
massive.
So not everyone will live in the house. But I actually don't know how many people can fit in one. It depends on the size of the house and how rich that fraternity is.
Of course, yeah.
Because you have to pay dues as well.
And what are dues?
Like a monthly fee. So you pay to be in it. You pay like it's like paying another rent. So say that I wanted to be in like this very exclusive sorority. Maybe I have to pay $200 a month to stay in it because they're my membership fees.
On top of whatever the rent is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I think it might be different if I was living in the house. It might be reduced dues or fees or whatever they're called.
Okay. Getting back to something that you actually mentioned earlier, almost in passing as a joke. I can't remember the context you said it in, but you mentioned, getting drunk and getting a roofie dropped in your drink.
Yeah. There's
a real dark element to the whole frat house fucking thing.
Well, it's really, like, you don't think that it happens, but then it happens to you. Like, it happened to me.
What did?
Getting, like, having something put in my drink.
Fuck.
So they had so there's a thing about fraternities, like a saying that goes, never drink the punch, because you don't know what they put in the punch. It's called trash can punch, right? And I went to my first roundup, or no, it was my second roundup, and after that I don't think I went because that experience spooked me. But I went over to, I think, what was the Jewish fraternity for some reason. And I went with all my friends because they were letting in everybody because they needed more people. So we walked all the way across campus, walked in this house. I think I had 1 cup of punch, but it was full of Xanax. Someone had just put tons and tons of Xanax into the, like one of those little Gatorade things where you just like, I don't know, it's like a big jug and you put your cup under it and you press the button and all the liquid comes out.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what that is, a dispenser of some kind. But it was full of Xanax and I had 1 cup and I couldn't stand upright. Luckily, I was with friends, so they helped me get out of the house. But like I was tripping and falling over myself and I had to be taken home. But, you know, imagine if I had been there alone and like some guy had handed me that drink.
And that's essentially the name of the game.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And like even the fact that there's a term for this just is so fucking repulsive. But like there's a... It's fair to say there's a date rape scene.
Yeah, there is
in
definitely.
these places. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck is that all about?
Yeah, and I probably had maybe 3 spike drinks in my life, and they were all from college and like big parties.
It's mad that this idea of spiking drinks. I mean, I'm sure it does happen in Ireland, but and again, maybe it's just because I'm more in the drug loop than others. But the idea, especially when I was a lot younger and into partying a lot more, the idea that somebody would spike my drink. That would have been to me at the time free drugs.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way? Like the idea
you don't
of, like,
think someone's going to drag you outside and, you know, assault you. But
yeah,
that's a fear that you have. That's a fear that I had constantly.
But that's a genuine. You need to have that. That's not paranoia.
It's a genuine fear. Yeah, it's not me being paranoid because so many of my friends had awful experiences in college, and we'd be all going out together, and then somehow you turn around and you know like, oh shit, where's Daniela gone?
Or whatever.
Yeah. And then you get a phone call later, you know, they're sobbing on the other end of the phone and you have to go find them. Yeah, it's a real culture and it's awful. It's awful that you leave your house thinking that you're going to have a fun time with your friends and everything goes horribly wrong, even if, you know, it happens to you or to your friend. Like, it happens more often than it ever should.
But a phenomenon like that, to me, you can see how it would have happened, how it would have kind of gotten to that stage. But again, in my innocence, I can see how it would have gotten bad that this date rape culture was happening. But I thought that there would have been almost like a self-correcting mechanism in humanity whereby the women would stop going to these fucking parties.
You think?
Now, I don't mean to blame the women, obviously.
No,
Jesus
I know,
fucking
yeah.
Christ. Like. But you'd think that if... Like, Jesus Christ, the thoughts that somebody would voluntarily go to somewhere where that had any chance of happening.
Yeah.
Least of all, it be a relatively common occurrence.
Yeah.
So, can you offer any kind of explanation of that to me? Or
the one time that it happened to me with the Xanax punch, the trash can punch at that one Jewish fraternity, I don't think that they are open anymore. Because if you're notorious on campus for doing that, you'll get shut down, or you won't have parties anymore, or no one will come to the party. So I actually don't know if they make that punch anymore at all, because they probably had some type of complaint or lawsuit come out against them. And other places it's as simple as like I had a drink at a bar and someone put something in it. I think someone might have bought me a drink and it was spiked. So like sometimes it's, you know, you have to be careful who you go out with. Like if you're going out with someone that you don't really know that well and they hand you a spiked drink, you know, there might be some nefarious purpose for you being out there with them. So sometimes it's not the party itself, but the person that you're with.
But Jesus Christ, I mean, that's barely removed from whacking you over the head and dragging you behind whatever, like. And is that I don't think we have that here. At least not to the same degree. I haven't heard that we have. I'm sure it does happen in kind of more isolated incidents. And is it my ignorant Irish mentality that it might happen more in the States than it does?
Well, would you believe it or not, the person that bought me the drink that was spiked was Irish, actually. They were someone that was studying abroad.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in Ireland, I don't know if we even... Like, put it this way. I've taken my fair share of drugs in my day. And I've obviously, therefore, bought my fair share of drugs.
Right.
But it was never... Like, the conversation of, you know, you hardly want a bit of this stuff as well, do you?
Yeah.
Why? What does that do? well, you can give it to a girl and, you know,
Yeah.
rape her.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of...
These are the things that we have for assaulting people.
Yeah,
Look
like
at the menu.
what the fuck? Like, I mean,
Yeah, I don't get
I've
it.
been offered different drugs. I've been
Right.
offered, you know, you're getting this. You might want a bit of this. You want a bit of that. You want a bit of the other. And,
Yeah.
you know, no or yes. But there was everything that I was being offered was for me.
Right.
Do you know the kind of way
It wasn't for the use on somebody else.
Yes, or if it wasn't for me, it was for me to share with my friends. As
Yeah.
in, I'd buy it and I'd say, Julie, fancy a bit of this?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Yes. Brilliant. You know, whatever.
Right.
But there was never ever any element of, you know, nefariously spiking someone's drink
Yeah.
or, you know, again, it's synonymous with smacking them over the head or,
Yeah.
you know, sneaking up from behind them and injecting them
it's
with something.
awful.
Like,
I know.
What the fuck, like?
I think it's this weird culture that's now kind of spread amongst the college party scene, and Austin itself is a really, really big party city, and so it already has this kind of seedy place called Dirty Sixth where you go.
Yes,
And it's,
we,
you know,
we went down
exactly.
there. Yeah,
And it's closed off so that everyone can run in and out of bars, and it's already, you know, like its own environment that perpetuates that kind of behavior. And then you add seedy characters into the mix, and you add frat boys that don't really know right from wrong into that as well, and you get campus rape culture.
Jesus Christ, scary stuff.
Yeah.
So moving swiftly away from campus rape culture, and back to the Confederacy.
God.
I told you these conversations get tangential, didn't
Yeah.
I? They
Yeah.
really do. They really do. Where do we finish up on the Confederacy?
On
the
the
Civil War.
Confederacy?
We were going for the Civil War.
Yeah.
So the southern states say so.
They were basically like, fuck you, we want to keep our slaves because we need them to pick our cotton.
Okay,
And
but
we're
sorry,
leaving America.
they wanted to leave the Union and they left the Union. Did
Yeah, they left the Union. They didn't ask. They were just like,
Yeah, of
we're
course.
out.
Yeah, fuck this. And then what's the opposite of the Confederacy? The United
The
States said the Union. Okay,
Yep.
the Union. The Union said, "Screw you guys! If you won't join us, we'll invade you and take you over." Or
No, it was more like, you can't be doing that. And the Confederacy was fighting against the Union. And it was this very kind of...
But how did they fight against them? If you know, it takes two to fight. If that
I
makes
think
sense.
it was the Union saying, no, you can't leave. And the Confederacy saying, yes, we can. And then they ended up fighting.
Okay.
I know that there's details to this. Pat's probably rolling his eyes whenever he listens to this because he watched a documentary about the Civil War. I fell asleep because this has been beat into me since I was a young child. So
yeah, Pat, just for the benefit of the listeners, being your partner and
Yep.
my little brother. So that's how we actually know each other.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So the southern states wanted to leave. The Union didn't want them to leave. They started fighting. And where did slavery come in to this? Or
Slavery was way before this, but I think that because other places in the world were stopping the slave trade,
okay,
and America was very reluctant to join that mentality.
it's funny because I wouldn't have thought that. Like, and I say that from a complete point of ignorance. But my what I've kind of been taught, not being taught directly, but my feeling would have been this, you know, was it Lincoln freed the slaves? And then, you know, so America got rid of slavery and then showed the rest of the world the error in their ways.
Yeah, backwards.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
happened. It happened.
We were pretty much the last ones.
And
I
where
think.
did it start? Have you any idea?
Um,
That's an interesting one.
I think it would have started Central America?
Right.
Well, I don't know, but like the practice of slavery is ancient.
Of course.
Yeah, but the way that slavery happened as we recall it in modern times, I'm not entirely sure. I know that there was slaves being pulled over to Brazil and Central America and the east coast of North America, but I don't remember exactly how it started. And this is shameful, seeing as I was just in the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis about a month ago, looking at how the slaves actually started being exported.
Yeah.
God, that's embarrassing.
But look, so there was the rest of the world, or most of the world, or at least some of the world, had basically abolished slavery. The Americans were slow to pick up. The Confederates wanted to keep their slaves because essentially it was driving their economies. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. They
for
didn't,
free labor, basically.
Yeah, they needed the manpower to supply everyone else with the cotton that was coming out of the South.
Okay. So they lost, essentially.
Yeah.
Lost the Civil War. And then what, were kind of ran out of town, or?
No, they just came back in the Union. And then we freed the slaves. And so everything was all right for a bit until Jim Crow laws were introduced.
Yeah. Now, what can you outline what the Jim Crow law was? Jim Crow laws were. There
Jim
we go.
Crow were basically like a set of laws that were going around the amendment that freed slaves to reduce their rights as people. And like, so it wasn't so much as enslaving them again, but pretty much inhibiting any way that they could be a normal American.
So prohibiting them from owning land or
or
accumulating
voting.
power.
They were considered like 3/4 of a person.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Segregation, separate bathrooms, all that kind of crap.
Black only, white only.
Okay.
Like that for a while.
And was the Confederate flag used at this point as we're holding on to our slaves emblem? Is that where the...
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's persisted since the Civil War as like an emblem of something, whether it be white conservatism or fuck anyone that's darker than I am.
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure how it continued to pop up throughout history.
Yeah.
I think I kind of avoided knowing that.
Yeah, well, of course, but it's not something that would. It's not subject matter that is particularly appealing to find out the nitty gritty of kind of what went on and how it went on and why. And
well, I also don't think that in a Southern school they really want to make a huge thing of how our side of the country was on the wrong side of history.
Yes, and on that, is there? Because was there a bit of controversy over the last year or so? I think kind of Trump has not done anything particularly, but just the fact that he's the character that he is, it's amplified all these other little things. So was there something in the States? Was it last year, the year before, about statues being taken down or
Confederate
moved?
statues.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of Confederate statues, like leaders of the Confederate Army that would have like won a lot of wars or like really fought for the Confederate cause, they would have been statues that were taken down.
So heroes on the losing side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heroes on the side that wanted to keep slaves.
Yes.
So obviously people were like, well, I really don't want to stare at the statue anymore.
And why did that seem to kick off? Was it last year or maybe the year before?
Well, it kind of started while I was in college still, and I graduated at the end or the beginning of 2016 in May. So it was kind of something that was brewing for a bit. People I think it was the beginning of really being politically correct and really being inclusive, and now it's kind of gone off the deep end with people being overly politically correct all the time and like overly sensitive to everything.
Yes, the far left, say.
Yeah, the far
Alt-left.
crazy left, yeah. That's what's happening now.
And is Texas, like, my understanding of Texas would be that it would be very conservative.
Parts of it, yeah.
And only parts of it, or?
Yeah, so I was surprised to see that the DFW area was all Hillary. Like when
the DFW.
So Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so that's the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, and those two metroplexes are really close together, and that whole, at least the Dallas area, I'm not sure if it was the Fort Worth area because that's more out in the sticks where the farmland and the cattle industry is. The Dallas area came up as, was it blue? I don't know the colors. Whatever color Hillary was.
Blue, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, is what showed up on when the statistics were coming in on the night that the vote was being counted.
Yeah, because you have like blue states and red states, which are just from a psychological perspective, it's just fascinating.
Yeah,
to me,
and then swing states, so you never know if they're going to be blue or red.
Is that what a swing state is? I actually never knew that. Hilarious. I thought a swing state was. I thought any state could be a swing state.
Not really.
Where I was coming from was you had 20 states voting this way, 20 states voting that way. There was only one state left to vote, and depending on which way it voted, it made it the swing state.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Okay, so
there's a few states that are like that you don't really, it's not a sure thing which way they're going to vote, and so they tend to be the ones to turn the tide.
Yes. And would Texas be a swing state?
No. Not at all. They are set in their ways.
So what are the swing states?
Oh, God. I don't know. I think Idaho is one of them, randomly enough.
Right.
Or is it Iowa?
You sound like me.
Yeah. I don't know what, like, that part of the States I've never gone to because there's nothing out there but
The
corn.
flyover states.
Yeah, there's just corn and, like, big fields. And a lot of beautiful national parks. Like, it's a shame that I haven't been out there more. But they're so far away, and there's really not that much there, so...
Hunting is big. Speaking of kind of the national parks and
Yeah.
the public land and
Lot of
all that
hunting.
jazz. Did you ever get into it, or did people you hang around with ever? Or?
Yeah, so I have some very classically Southern friends. So I don't have your, like, what people would think of as the cliche Southern accent. I don't have a drawl. When I am home around these specific people, I do pick up kind of a twang.
And can you put it on there now, just for the benefit of me and the listeners to know exactly?
Yeah, so a Texan twang would kind of sound like, I don't know.
Yosemite Sam
Yeah,
type.
going out to Whataburger, gonna get myself a cheeseburger and some fries, and then go home and drink my sweet tea. That's what a Texan accent would sound like.
Y'all.
Yeah, put on my cowboy boots, grab the shotgun, put Lucy in the car, drive off with the hound, and we're gonna shoot some pigs.
Brilliant.
So I have friends that are like that were raised that way, that, you know, the first big coat that they ever owned was camo. And
the first what, sorry?
like a big jacket they ever owned was a camouflage coat.
Of course it was.
Yeah,
of course
like
it was.
the first rain boots were camouflage ones, like with that all kind of print. And you walk into their house, and it's kind of like a museum of animal trophies, all the antlers over the fireplace, and you've got even like rugs that are made out of cowhide and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so I would have
yeah.
grown up with really, really Southern people who have ranches out in the middle of nowhere, which is actually kind of fun. One of my best friends has a ranch that's out in West Texas, kind of outside the Fort Worth area. And we'd go out there, all of us as a big group, to be out in the middle of nowhere for about 3 days. All we do is ride around on four-wheelers. The guys take out their guns. We barbecue, and we, like, go fuck with the cows, go fishing, and, like, play drinking games for about 3 days.
Class.
Yeah, so, like, I do have friends that are like that do go hunting a lot. And some people that hunt, like, big game. So they would have, I know one of my friends knows a guy who has a ranch out somewhere in West Texas, I believe, that has exotic animals out there. So
Purposely introduced.
Yeah,
them?
for the sake of
lions
killing.
and shit, or
yeah, I think one of them was a Gemsbok. So it's like a, kind of looks like an antelope from
Yes.
Africa. So they have Gemsbok out there. I think they had a zebra out there to kill too. Like, because they have money to blow and the land to do
Blow it
this
on.
kind of stuff on. Yeah, they have the money to blow things up.
Yeah.
And they would have, you know, like, I have a friend named Jake who will hunt with a crossbow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he has big guns, and, like, the thought of anyone taking away his right to own a gun is absolutely beyond him. Because that's just how he's grown up. But he would also be the kind of person that would go shoot deer, and that deer would be taken to, like, a center that takes in deer meat from hunters and gives them to families in need. So
Okay,
they would
yeah.
be supplying families food, or they would take it home and make deer jerky, or, like, put the meat in the freezer to last through the winter. So some people actually do hunt for food. Other people shoot for fun. That will, like, make big trips out to not to Texas, to Africa, to go shoot lions and stuff. I know a few people that do that as well.
Yeah, of course. That's a kind of a hairy one, because, and I've only been introduced to this via Joe Rogan, I suppose, but there was a bit of controversy there a couple of years ago where some guy, I think he was willing to pay 250 grand to go over to somewhere in Africa and shoot some endangered rhino. And word got out about this, basically, and everyone just lost their shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, wanting to know the details and the specifics, no. Shooting an endangered species, all bets are off. This can't fucking happen.
Yeah.
And basically it didn't go ahead. Your man didn't get to spend his 250 grand. He didn't get to shoot the rhino. But the reason the rhino was up for sale to be shot, basically, was because he was an older bull that was fucking with the few remaining breeding rhinos
Oh.
that were there, and they had to shoot him anyway.
Oh, controversial.
So that area didn't get 250 grand to go towards conservation.
Right.
Thanks to all the fucking left-leaning hippies
Yeah.
saying you can't go around shooting rhinos.
Yeah, it's
So there's so much nuance involved in hunting, I think.
well, it's like the like a little bit of knowledge is way more dangerous than being well informed
Yes.
on something.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
So that's oh god. Yeah, that's where the alt-left is nowadays, just demonizing everybody for saying the slightest thing without really knowing the background or the full story.
No,
And
absolutely.
then it makes national headlines, and some poor fucker out in anywhere in America loses their job and their career because a bunch of 19, 20-year-olds are trying to be social justice warriors.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I hear about all of this from Ireland, say.
Yeah.
But were you surrounded in that? Did you see that firsthand, or that type of person? I only know of them.
Yeah.
Do you know them?
I do know them.
Okay.
Yeah. I have friends that are social justice warriors, and I have friends that are conservative bigots.
Yes.
I'm right in the middle of it. So I see both sides a lot, and it's uncomfortable when the two of them are in the same room and there's alcohol involved, because one of them will always leave really angry.
Hilarious. And you that has an education in psychology, what's your take on it? Because you're in a kind of a good position. You're on both sides.
Yeah.
As you've said, you've kind of got friends on both sides, and you have an insight at least into the underlying psychology. Or do you feel that you have? Or
well, it's not that, I'm sitting here always analyzing someone. I think a psychology degree just allows you to be more aware of different points of view and different personalities, different cultures that are surrounding you. So you kind of approach situations more with a bit more empathy and a bit more perspective. And at least for myself, I don't, like, if someone says something super controversial, I can make myself be the devil's advocate and see it from their point of view and my point of view. And it's really helped me not to immediately become angry when someone said something. Like, it's kind of calmed me down with the world around me, which I think is something that everyone could use.
Yes, very much so.
Because if we, like, the thing at home right now, the biggest thing that I've realized is that everyone is on has polarizing opinions, and so you can't be in a room with someone that supports Trump, because how do you talk to them? So you just don't talk to them.
Yes.
And you're alienating them, and you're not trying to learn from one another or see where they're coming from, or even try to persuade them to see something from your perspective, because you're too busy yelling at them for being a bigot. And they're calling you a hippie bastard, go take a shower, it's people just need to be able to sit down and talk more, rather than go for each other's throats immediately upon hearing that they don't have the same checklist of ideals and morals that the other person has.
Yeah, and is it just an American thing? Because we don't have left or right counties in Ireland.
Yeah.
Or even towns in Ireland.
I wouldn't even know.
But we don't talk in those terms here at all.
Yeah.
This idea of being, Republican or Democrat or left or right or conservative or progressive, they're all essentially American terms.
I think that it's just the nature of the people who founded America. So they would have left because we're Puritans and we believe this and other people don't. So we're going to go make our own place where Puritans will just be everywhere, because fuck the people that don't believe what we believe. So it kind of started with that idea. And then it was like, white people versus Native Americans. So like it was always us against something, or like me against you.
The other.
Yeah,
we actually
the
spoke
other.
about it last night with Anthony Murphy. Yeah.
So I think that that's just the culture that's always kind of been there in America. And now it's kind of gone to the extreme because social media and the clown of a president that we have that's really angering people, rightfully. But now I think one of the biggest things with Trump is that he's allowed people to feel more comfortable saying all the things that other people damn. So people that are viscerally racist now feel comfortable enough to go down the street and have like a KKK rally, because, freedom of speech, these are my rights. Whereas before they would have been more secretive about it. So now people are just way more open about their opinions, and they have the platforms to do it on and be heard.
And from a progression point of view, as opposed to a progressive point of view, will we look back on it as a good thing? Like in 50 years' time, when the dust has settled from Trump, and
Right.
you have a sane guy, kind of a Barack Obama-esque type character, a statesman, say.
Yeah.
Because I think Trump wouldn't be nearly as jarring to people if he had the same views that he has, but was just a little bit more of a statesman. Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
Or maybe he'd be worse. I don't know. Maybe the fact that he is the way he is softens it. He wouldn't be as dangerous a character if he was a bit more serious. Do you know that kind of way? Like if he had the same views that he had, but he said it with a poker face and didn't tweet and didn't, say stupid things and was very kind of analytical and science based.
Like a bit more Hitlery.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because I don't think people draw comparisons to him and Hitler. Like I haven't heard Hitler's name mentioned more in the last 2 years, I think, than I ever did. Everybody's Hitler.
Yeah.
I'm Hitler. You're Hitler, whatever. It's just so strange. But that idea that them and us, like you really have that right down the middle of America, because it is thereabouts 25 blue states and 25 red states, is it? It must. It kind of must be in order for. Could be. But if it was a landslide one, then you'd always have one in power. Or has there been one predominantly in power? Do you know? Or are you that even politically? Do you give a shit one way or the other?
So I know, during W. Bush. That's a southern thing right there. Instead of saying W, you say W.
W.
Yeah, so W. Bush, when he was there for 8 years. So
this is Junior now, is it? The most recent Bush?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like he would have been Republican for 8 years, and that would have been like that would have been the primary, Jesus, what am I trying to say? The primary party in government would have been Republican at that time, and then it switched, and Democrats got the limelight, and Obama was there, and now it's gone back, and it's also gone back 100 years in progressiveness at the same time. Yeah, just a big backward step.
And is there what am I trying to say? Who likes Trump? Because he does have a support. He's not without his support.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised by the amount of people that support him that are
rational people
that are multicultural. A lot of women, just it blows my mind. I don't get it. I think at the beginning people didn't really take him seriously, and now a lot of people who see the seriousness of the situation have kind of backed away, but other people have really started adamantly supporting him because he says what's on his mind, and he's black and white. But I don't think he's really black and white. He's kind of like yellow.
Or orange.
He's somewhere else, and he has his own universe. He's not where the rest of us are. Yeah,
that is kind of scary. I heard someone mention recently that they were speaking of his kind of egotistical nature, and the idea that if he did kick off like a nuclear Armageddon, and he was the last man alive in some bunker, and he literally killed everybody else.
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly. Yeah,
that'd be kind of all right, like
that's him. Yeah, that's definitely him, and I think he's perpetuating that culture among people that already think that way, and he's bringing them out of their burrows, and now they're out and about in America and on the news.
And this is what I kind of laboured to make. The point I laboured to make there a minute ago is the fact that these groups can kind of come out and be themselves. Is them exposing themselves to the world a good thing?
I don't know.
As opposed to kind of having them underground and having this fester. Because I was chatting about this with a friend of mine via text message, and he signed off one of his texts by saying, "Oh, and the Nazis are back." And he was right, because it wasn't that long after the white supremacist rally, wherever it was it in Charlottesville, or was that was something else? Whatever it was, a full-on KKK rally with the tiki torch things and all that jazz.
Yeah.
It was shortly after that, so we said, "Oh, and the Nazis are back." But what that made me think was, they're not back.
Yeah.
They didn't go anywhere. Like, Trump hasn't made all these people racist all of a sudden. That was kind of, he capitalized on maybe an undercurrent of racism, and until that racism is unearthed and a light is shone on it, how are you ever supposed to address it?
Right.
It's like that old adage, you can't, the first step to solving a problem is being aware that you have one.
Yeah.
So if there was this undercurrent of racism across America, say, that was going unnoticed, maybe it was just festering and getting worse and worse, and maybe it's a good thing that it happened now with Trump and not in 50 years with the more Hitler-esque version of Trump.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really good point of view.
But just the whole thing is just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it's happening in the States and not here.
I'm happy I'm here and not there.
Someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just keep traveling until his 4 years are up. Hopefully there's not another 4 years. We'll go home.
Speaking of traveling, you were in Brisbane, went to Sydney,
Yeah.
back to the Emerald Isle, and you're here for the year? Or do you
Yeah.
know, or what way are you?
Yeah, so the plan is I have a working holiday visa for this coming year, but because the Irish system is so backwards with everything,
I won't have tell of it. I don't know what you're talking about. A backward Irish system, I do not
What
believe
is this? It's news to me. So I got the visa, right? Grand. I paid $300 for it. I thought that was the end of it, just like any other visa. Once you have the visa, you know, you get all the rights that come with it. I show up here. I actually have to pay in it €300 to register myself with the guards and get an Irish residency permit. And only once I have that can I work. So really, it comes out to like 600 something my visa does, which is some bullshit because I didn't have all the money saved for that.
And is there a sneaky element to that? I mean, how much is the
definitely.
visa in Ireland? It's 300 quid. How much is the visa somewhere else? It's
Yeah.
350 quid. Oh, well, I'll go to Ireland.
I paid $350 to go to Australia, and that was it. Like I showed
that's
up,
what it cost
I
you.
filed for a tax file number, which was free, and that was the one thing that I needed. Came within a week, and I was good to go. Got here, started applying to jobs. I got an interview with a recruitment agency. They said, "Oh, where is all these documents that you need?" What? You need to go and do that. By the way, it's going to take you about a month to get them.
And cost you
great, yeah.
€350.
So I've already been here almost a month, and it's going to take me about another month before I can work. So that's 2 months just kind of gone down the drain. That there's like a repeat of Australia. Anyone from America trying to come here, learn from my mistakes.
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
do the same thing. Yeah, I wish they would have just been more straightforward about it, and it would have said like, follow these steps so you can have a good time and not hate us. But like, come on.
And what did you use as a resource? Like, were you on, irishgovernment.ie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not listed there.
That's the mistake you made.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, the good thing is that I know people here and I'm in someone's home that can take care of me if shit hits the fan. But if I had just shown up to Ireland by myself, I would probably have to go home at this point.
Yeah. Of
'Cause
course.
I wouldn't be able to sustain myself for that month with no income, eating through my savings, paying rent, paying food. Like, it's a good thing that it happened with the situation that I'm in.
Of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you can see, it's just so sneaky. I mean, when you come here, it's €300 to get the visa to come and work here. Oh, you've got that. Oh, but you want to have a job and get paid. Oh, okay, so that's an extra €300.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, and you have to have medical insurance. Oh, well, that's going to be about $250.
yeah, you want to drive? Oh, okay, we didn't realize you wanted to drive.
Yeah.
There's this tax or whatever.
Yeah, or take out a international driving permit. That's going to cost you $20 from home. But don't do it once you're overseas, or else it's going to be way more difficult and take you a long time to get it. Like, just give me a checklist of all the things that you need me to do. I'll have them done before I show up. I'm a responsible adult, obviously, if I'm getting up and moving across the world. Like,
Of course.
just make it a bit easier. All I need to do is put on there and say, as soon as you land in Ireland, and if you're on a working holiday visa, go to the nearest guard's office, do all this registration, pay the €300, so that way you can get working as fast as possible.
Yeah, everybody wins.
Yeah, because they say that do it within 90 days. So I thought, I'll just do it as soon as I get a job. I didn't know that like you had 90 days to do it and then you can't do it and you have to leave. But you also should do it as soon as you land, because no one was that explicit with me until I already had the interview and a job sitting in front of me where they couldn't hire me yet. Which is really annoying. It's like, yeah, it only took me 2 weeks to find work. Awesome.
And that
Nope.
job, like presumably that particular job won't be there with either the agency or the company.
The agency is pretty much like, once you have your permit, send us a copy of it. We'll double check that it's legit, and then you can start work whenever we have a temp job available for you.
And they're kind of confident that one of them is coming, like.
Yeah. Because they do this all the time with working holiday travelers. So
Yeah,
it's just a matter of time, really.
Happy days. And you're here for what, the year?
Yeah. So I don't know if I'll be going home for Christmas at all, but that's the plan. I only plan 1 year at a time, because anything more than that really stresses me out. But I probably need to be doing that now, because the goal is for fall of 2019 to be in school again. And I need to decide where that is, what I'll be studying.
Fall of next year to
Yes.
be back in college. Okay. Yeah. And you've between now and when to kind of decide that?
Well, I need to retake my GRE, which is the entrance exam for any graduate level education in America. You have to take your GRE. I don't know what it stands for, like graduate readiness exam, something like that.
Okay.
Or graduate requisite exam. I don't know.
And that's just to prove that you have the proficiency to actually complete
exactly.
that type of course.
So that's the general exam.
I'm sorry, will you have to study for that?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Okay.
Because I took it once when I was in Australia, but my math skills are poor. So I need to redo it so that I can get a better math score.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm struggling with right now. So I need to retake that at the latest in November, set out my applications before Christmas. And then, and then you get acceptance letters around the springtime of 2019, and then you're off.
And where are you thinking of studying? Will it definitely be back in the States? Or?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Because I'm no longer making the decision for myself. Like, if I was just going by myself, it'd be a lot easier. But it will be two of us going wherever we go. So we need to find programs in common and stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. No, that's understandable.
Yeah.
And are you leaning towards psychology or epigenetics, or is there a genetics course or an epigenetics course?
Probably, yeah, but I just need to think of how applicable, or like what's the utility of that degree once I have it. Like, what kind of job is that going to lead me into? Because I want a degree that's going to have kind of a straightforward thing to do. Because I don't want writing to be my full-time job. It's definitely a big hobby, but at the same time, it should be my full-time job because I can't write while I'm working because it sucks all my creativity away. And I've already tried that. And I've been able to write more since I've been here and been unemployed than I have ever before because I have all my needs basically met. You know, I have food, roof over my head, company, in a beautiful place. So that's inspiration itself. But once I start working, all my priorities go towards work and like making sure I'm saving my money. So I don't know how that's going to feed into whatever secondary education I'm gonna get.
And here's one for you now. I would be very much a proponent of doing what you like.
Yeah.
And then kind of figuring out what you want to do once you've kind of done what you like.
Yeah.
That's obviously a very double-edged sword. There's plenty of people with all sorts of arts degrees that are, working in McDonald's or, whatever.
That's soul crushing.
But how do you feel about that? I mean, the idea of just going balls out and doing something for the love of it more than anything else. Is that too scary? Or?
It is scary, yeah, but that's kind of what I've done with psychology, because that's what I loved. And now I'm here, and all I can do is admin work, and all the work that I want to do I'm not qualified to do yet. So that's what's kind of pushing me towards getting a more specific degree. But in getting a specific degree, I limit myself to a lot more options. So,
And when you say you're not qualified to do the kind of work that you want to do, what's the kind of work that you want to do?
Like, I want to use my degree to actually do something degree related, but they require master level psychology degrees, which I don't have. So that, like, when I'm applying to jobs and I see all these psych related jobs, like working in social work or something like that, I'm like, oh wow, that'd be great because I'd be so interested in that. Or, like addiction research, and I just don't have the qualifications for it yet.
Okay.
I have the qualifications to be the admin bitch to the admin bitch to the researcher. So
who's looked down upon by the professor and everyone else.
Yeah, so I'll be at the bottom of the food chain.
And is there money in writing? Like in any sense, like can you get a job? I don't know, editing in a newspaper, or maybe not that, but like I don't know. Is there
I
that?
Could, yeah.
Like, copy house. What's copy house? What's copying and copy editing and
copyright
stuff? All that word.
There's money in that. But I don't want to do that because that's just sitting in front of a computer editing other people's stuff. I wanted to be editing my own.
But presumably there's a skill to editing, whether it's your own work or others.
Yeah, to be a good writer, you need to be a good reader. So a lot of what, like the best part about being unemployed, other than, not having to show up for a job that you hate or being surrounded by people that you don't like, is getting to read. And I read so many things that inspire me and help me kind of navigate what I'm trying to do and shed light on their writing processes. So like at the beginning, there'll be the author's note of how they created so-and-so book. Most people will flip through that. But that to me is the most interesting part, is how did this person come up with this tale? Are they drawing on personal experiences? Or did they just go on this life-changing trip and then, learned, I don't know, something about themselves that opened up this whole new world? Or did they accidentally fall into a history book and start writing historical fiction because this time back whenever really captured their heart. Like, that's the most interesting part to me.
Yeah, of course, yeah. No, it's fascinating. And you said that you've written a lot and over a vast period, but it's all been very personal. Is it too personal to share? Would you publish it? Have you got a Facebook page?
I have, like, on my Instagram page, there's a link to a Tumblr account that I have 2 blogs published on. So the last one would have been kind of an emotional well-being type of piece, because it was right after I finished college, and I realized how unwell I was after the year. And it was only in the process of getting better that I realized how unwell I was at the time. Like, I didn't have that perspective until there was a change in me where I was able to go, oh, I feel different now. Right, it's because I felt shit before, and this is why. And so I kind of wrote about that. And I really do want to be writing more and publishing it more, because I need to get comfortable with the idea that people are going to be reading my writing. And the only way to do that is to do it more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do have a blog that I haven't touched in a long time. I've been meaning to, because it was kind of a travel blog where I'd post, like the first one I did was about my time in France. So I did a language exchange program. So I would have lived with a French family, speaking only French all the time, doing French classes, living in France.
Cool. Sorry, when was this?
This was 2015, the summer of 2015.
Okay.
I did an accelerated French program at UT. So it's basically 2 years of French in like 9 months. And so by the time you get over there, you're really proficient, but you don't have the day-to-day practice. So when you're living in France and you're with a host family, all you do is French. So by the time I left, I was fluent. I'm not fluent anymore. Because
but I mean, presumably if you went over for a weekend, by halfway through the second day, you'd practically be fluent again.
Oh, Jesus, I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with me is that I was trilingual at that point. So my Spanish and my French were getting mixed up. So whenever I try to speak one, I'd accidentally speak the other.
Hilarious.
And I wouldn't notice until someone would give me a weird look. And be like, what the fuck was that? Because I'm used to speaking Spanglish, which is Spanish and English at the same time. It's what's spoken in my house. But I wasn't used to Franish.
Yeah. Nor were the French, presumably.
Yeah. So it was just hard for my brain to hold all of those words at once. I think, like, I actually got to the point where I was fluent, and then I just went backwards. Like, my brain just turned off and, like, just started shooting out French words out of my ears, because I couldn't hold them in anymore. So then I kind of lost French as I was there, because I was doing too much, and my brain needed to take a step back. So I wrote about that experience, about living in France, because that was my first time really leaving home and being on my own and being in a different culture that wasn't one that's from South America or Central America, but being in something totally foreign. So I wrote about that, and that's a blog post that you kind of have to dig for amongst my really cheesy filtered Instagram photos.
French people, we've talked about Australians and Americans. Give me your take on French people.
On French people, they're really nice. I actually had a really enjoyable time there.
There's an air of surprise there.
Yeah, because everyone always talks about how arrogant and kind of, people just talk about how arrogant French people are.
Yeah, stuck up, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's Parisians. I found that really only happening to me in Paris, because I lived primarily in Lyon, and I was with a little French lady who was maybe like half my height, but who was twice as thick as me, and she had like fiery red hair, and she was the Japanese teacher at this French university, and she was such a character. Like, there was little stools around the house so she could get into the cabinets, because she was basically hobbit sized. She was tiny, and she was just really sweet, and we would sit there talking for hours in the evening, maybe for like 2 or 3 hours, and she'd pull up the dictionary for me so we could go through and find French words, and she'd tell me about her culture, and like we talk about our days. So she really wanted me to engage with her and learn about me. So she was a very genuine person. A lot of people that I met there, other people, like other fellow students, were with really nice families that took them out to family homes out in the countryside just to really show them French culture. And whenever we traveled around to the countryside, we met wonderful people, and they were so excited to see American young students speaking the language so proficiently and being able to communicate with them and being genuinely excited to meet them and eat the food or like learn about their way of life. So I had a wonderful experience out there. The only time that I felt really uncomfortable was when I went down to Marseille. It was the most uncomfortable I've ever been being a woman. I felt like every man that looked at me was going to whack me over the head and take me prisoner. Like
Just ogling you, like, or...
all I was wearing was shorts and a t-shirt, but I wanted to wear like a full bodysuit and cover my face because the looks they were giving me, like you'd swear I was walking around naked with like covered in lights, waving my arms above my head, yelling the way that they were looking at me. It was awful. I felt it was the most dangerous place I've been, I feel.
Jesus.
And we were in a fair group of, like in a big group of girls, but men would just stop what they were doing and turn around and leer. Like, there's a difference between a glance and a leer, and you can really feel it. And I was leered at an awful lot.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And again, I was just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. It was hot out. I'm not going to wear jeans.
Yeah, yeah. And were, the French girls, were they all covered up? Or, like, were you... Like, you mightn't have been wearing anything particularly revealing by your standards, but by their standards, were you maybe? Again,
I think that they were just
obviously.
used to it, so they didn't really bat an eye.
Used to what? Sorry. Oh,
used
the
to
girls.
be leered at. Yeah.
Yes.
Or most people, because we were tourists and we didn't really know we were walking around, I don't think that there was a lot of people our age in that area. So we went to someone's Airbnb because this was like a solo trip. We didn't take it as a group from the school. So we all went down. It was like a group of 10 of us, and half of us stayed out further outside the city. That's where I was, and it was really pretty out there. But further in the city is where all the seedy men were, and big groups of foreign seedy men. So they weren't exactly French. I don't know where they were from.
Foreigners.
You fucking foreigners. Yeah. But they were, they just made you really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's mad because that's such a foreign thing, I think, for men to hear. Like, I've never felt uncomfortable in any environment ever because of all the, leering women were doing.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm not as pretty as you. I don't know. Yeah. I feel a little bit left out.
I'll take you to southern France. Maybe you'll get leered at.
You mentioned your blog there a minute ago, and I don't want to forget this. I won't read your blog.
Okay.
I would listen to it, though.
Oh, right. Oh, I don't think I'd ever record my own voice. I hate the sound of my own voice.
Everybody hates the sound of their own voice.
Yeah. No, but like you have a nice voice to be recording. Your voice is good to listen to.
Yeah, but I don't find your voice poor to listen to.
Oh, I hear it and I go, oh my God, my accent's so nasally. Who's that obnoxious American? Oh shit, it's me.
But that's just your own voice thing, because you hear your voice differently than, like, I hear my voice differently than you hear my voice.
Yeah.
So and less and less, because I've had to listen to so much of my own voice that it doesn't sound weird to me anymore.
Kind of desensitized to it.
Yes, big time. But I do remember, especially when I was a kid, and hearing your voice for the first time, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's wrong with your recording device?
Do I always sound like this?
Yeah, and people go, like, I was shocked, and then I'm looking at other people's reaction, and to say they're not shocked, is to put it as mildly as it can be put. They're like, what? That's just you, and you're like, oh my God, it's a real self-realization thing. So, but again, that's your own hang-up over your own voice.
Yeah.
So I couldn't recommend recording the audio. I couldn't recommend it more. And I think we touched on this before we started talking. I think, like, words of wisdom from a man who doesn't write or has no intention of writing or becoming an author.
Yeah.
But I have found recording the solo podcasts particularly beneficial.
Yeah.
And what surprised me is what comes out of my mouth a lot of the time. And I listen to myself back, and it's like, there's times when I'm listening to it back for a number of reasons, to maybe write the little blurb. Yeah. Because I have to kind of remind myself what I spoke about. Yeah. So to give an accurate or semi-accurate type of blurb, I have to listen back to it. I have to listen back to it to make sure that the audio is okay, and you're not putting up something that's just zzz for the second half of the recording. But I've caught myself sitting there kind of nodding my head going, yeah, he makes some good points. Do you know that kind of way? It's like you're beside yourself. It's fucking weird. Like. Yeah. Very, very weird.
But see, I get that same sensation when I put pen to paper. Because I'll sit down to write something and it transforms into something totally other. Because most of the time when I write, it's to self-reflect or to remember like a specific day that I want to. But then I'll end up writing about all these feelings that I've had inside or ideas, and I'll end up sitting there writing for 2 hours, and I look back and I've got 10 pages of stuff.
No way.
I never anticipated writing. So for me, I get more clarity from writing things down, and I can like just really more accurately put down my thoughts when I've been writing. I personally feel that I have a better voice on page than
yes,
and then recorded. But that's because I've been practicing it for years, for the better part of my life, you know.
You've also been talking for your
Yeah,
entire life too. Do you want to do it in a weird way?
but I would have been, up until recently, a very guarded person. So I never would have voiced any opinions or any thoughts or anything. I would have been like a very mellow kind of, oh yeah, whatever, like passive almost.
And you say up until recently, was there a catalyst there, or?
Psychology degree and my choice of partner,
Right.
who's a very outspoken person and would have kind of pulled a lot out of me. Like, that's one of the biggest reasons my character has changed.
Is because of Pat's influence. And what did you learn in psychology that made a difference?
A lot of emotional unwellness that was in my own life growing up.
Emotional unwellness.
Yeah,
Okay.
just in the people who were raising me, the person that I was, even in my sibling, like things that I didn't realize that I thought were normal. And then, like, just the experience of being in college in itself, meeting people that were from, just people that were other, like, that didn't have the same experiences as me, but still had the same kind of feelings because they're part of the human experience. And I didn't really realize what the human experience was, and that a lot of people feel the same way, and a lot of people have, you know, mommy or daddy issues because of those reasons. But I didn't see them as parental issues. I just saw them as like, oh yeah, that's home, whatever. And then got a psychology degree, realized how fucked up it was, and then have been kind of like healing and processing with it since then.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And my professional background has been in sales and business development, and because I'm a kind of a perfectionist, I always wanted to kind of do better.
Right.
And with sales in particular, it's one of those jobs that if you work harder, you will get paid more. So
Right.
in an administrative role, if you have to file 100 letters
Yeah.
and you file 200, there's no bonus, so
Yeah.
there's no incentive to learn and get better. But in sales, it's different. And for someone
Right.
with a perfectionistic tendency, if you really want to excel at something, why not make it sales?
Right.
Because at least you can get paid. Do you know that
Yeah.
kind of way? But it sent me down a psychology rabbit hole. So I obviously wouldn't have the same academic background as yourself that spent a couple of years studying it. Like, but it has, even by me dipping my toe in over the years, I suppose I've had the same experience to a degree that once you learn, you actually mentioned there a second ago that there is such a thing as a human experience,
Yeah.
not just your own, and that somebody else might have, let's say, a mommy or daddy issue, and that mightn't be the same issue that you've had, but it's still
Yeah.
the same type of issue, say.
Yeah.
But so it's fascinating, and it's great that you've kind of, I suppose, developed on the back of that.
Yeah, it gave me a lot of personal insight, because there was a lot of things that I wasn't dealing with. Like, I would have been the kind of person that shoved things down until it all imploded.
Yeah, bottle that shit up.
Yeah, right. That's how I was raised, though. Like, that was the mentality of my parents and their parents, and
Yeah.
so that's all that I knew, was to bottle it up. And I didn't know that they were feeling the exact same way because no one ever fucking said anything. And like I've now started in my home hugging everyone way more often. Like, even that in itself at the beginning was like, my parents were kind of like, Jesus, why are you so needy all of a sudden? But now, like, everyone hugs each other more, and I say I love you all the time. I don't remember hearing I love you that much growing up, but now I hear it all the time, and it's because they didn't hear it from their parents, because it was very much like tough love, and I would have grown up on some tough love, but I'm kind of changing that in my own home, because I realize that even though it's something that's been going on for generations, doesn't really mean that it's the right thing to do and that it's going to make more healthy individuals, because it's just going to perpetuate people that are going to raise other people to do the same exact shit. So
Yeah, no,
you have to start
absolutely.
somewhere.
And that's kind of the downside of conservatism. You know, keeping things the same isn't necessarily good.
Yeah.
And obviously there's the downside of liberalism is you can't go around changing everything. If your 5-year-old son wants to be a girl, you don't book him in for the fucking surgery.
Yeah.
You know, we need a bit of middle ground, people. You know, fucking centre yourself, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. We're at what, just over the 2-hour mark.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I
Has
know,
it really
yeah.
been that long?
No, it has.
Okay.
It's been great.
Cool.
Thanks a million for coming on, and I want 10% of the proceeds of this fucking book.
Of course. Yeah,
regardless.
write you in.
Not even if I'm in or if you've used any of my my ideas. But record some audio. Set up a Facebook page and publish the blog at least.
Okay.
And get writing.
Yeah,
And
definitely be writing.
Get the feedback more so than get writing, I suppose. Not that I want to fucking dish out advice, but don't or put it out there.
Yeah.
Because there's benefit in I think there's benefit in having a pile of writing accumulating in a room somewhere, because you're putting pen to paper is beneficial for clearing your thoughts and straightening out your mind and whatever else. But nothing beats feedback from people.
Yeah.
So for that would be my tuppence worth for what it's worth.
Yeah.
And I look forward to listening to your blog.
Oh God. Okay.
What's the link? Would you give out the link to your blog? How would you find it?
It's you only realize when you've named something horribly when you have to say the name out loud.
Go for it.
Me doing some stuff.
Me doing some stuff.
Yeah.
.com?
I think it's like .tumblr or something, or it's like Tumblr / me doing some stuff.
Well, I tell you what, okay? Anybody who's stayed on this long, anybody who's listened to you for 2 hours, say,
right,
presumably is going to want to have a look at that.
I guess, yeah.
Like if anyone, if anyone's going to want to read what you've written on your blogs.
Yeah, if they've put up with me for this long.
Pretty much, yeah. Absolutely. So I'll include it in the notes with your permission, if that's cool.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So I'll include it in the notes. And listen again. Absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
See ya.